Chapter 365. After taking a stroll around the internet, Qin Guang felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction in his heart. As a noob who used to have 3,000 points, it was impossible for him not to feel proud after playing blindly for a few days. He logged into his account and saw that there were so many friend requests that he couldn't count them all. However, Qin Guang didn't have many friends to begin with. At this time he didn't know many of these friend requests, so he wasn't interested. He entered the rhythm of playing solo every day. Now that he had over 7,000 points, he could gradually enter the circle of professional players. Qin Guang began to ponder whether he should take the initiative to add 2 professional players as friends and see if he could take the opportunity to sneak into their circle in one go. Right now, this brother's rhythm is flying everywhere. I'm a proper celebrity. It shouldn't be too much to add them as friends, right? After the match was successfully made, he loaded the game and entered the player selection interface. Immediately one of his teammates shouted, F***CK. Brother Xianxia. Qin Guang turned on the microphone and chuckled, Hey, no one wants to fight me for the mid lane, right? Actually, there was another professional player in the team with 8,000 points. I'll let you win. Qin Guang was happy. Thank you. If I win this match, I'll have a 100 win streak. That professional player was quite generous. He immediately said, Then I'll turn off the live stream. After choosing his champion and entering, the people on the other side sent him messages. Some people mocked Qin Guang's winning streak record, some said to add him as a friend after the match, and some asked why the professional player's live stream had been cut off. Qin Guang's teammates simply replied a few words and then fully focused on the game. This time he had really met a good teammate. They knew that he was aiming for a 100 win streak, so they were all very serious. The number of spectators outside of the game continued to rise. There was no need to say who dared to go easy on others in this match. Needless to say, the pace of the forum immediately soared. The entire match was quite intense. The opponent was also a pro player with 8,000 points and 4 pro players with 7,000 points. The two sides fought back and forth. Fortunately, Qin Guang, a person with low HP but high HP, acted as the last straw that broke the camel's back. The final score was 73-69. The two sides fought for 90 minutes and exchanged bases. Qin Guang was ahead by 100 HP and successfully destroyed the enemy's base. He finally won this unprecedented battle, allowing the tens of thousands of spectators to enjoy an amazing visual feast. Before anyone realized it, many streamers on the live streaming platform had already put up the title, Let's witness an unprecedented 100-game winning streak in the Celestial Stairway tournament. As a gimmick, he treated this random game as if it was a competition. With 18 kills, 3 deaths and 14 assists, Qin Guang handed in a satisfactory answer sheet for his 100-game winning streak. After the match, Qin Guang added the pro player who had given him the mid laner as a friend. He asked him about official competitions and then completely gave up on the idea of forming a team. There was no time. There was no time at all. He did not expect the current professional esports circle to be so formal. There was a fixed time for players to register. Furthermore, there was a dead knot like the transfer period. This was not a problem that could be solved with money. In other words, this was not something that Qin Guang could change with his current net worth. He was still not rich enough. However, Azure rarely asked him to do something so clearly. Now that she had asked, Qin Guang did not dare to fool her. If he said 1 month, he definitely could not be late by a day. This gave him a headache and he did not dare to relax. At the same time, after the match, he went to the forums in Tieba again. This time it was a complete explosion. From 99 consecutive wins to 100 consecutive wins, even if it was just one more win, it was a qualitative change from double digits to triple digits. The sensation that it caused on the internet was on a completely different level. Yesterday, only 1/3 of the posts on the forums in Tieba were talking about his winning streak. Today it was completely different. Posts about this player named the strongest brother Guang's 100-game winning streak took up almost 70% of the forums. How can I accept this? Qin Guang chuckled. He was really embarrassed by all the flattery. He did not expect that even with the thick skin of the old man, there would be a day when he could not take it. As far as the eye could see, there was an overwhelming number of diehard fans. Some of the words even made him, the initiator, feel embarrassed. What? There would definitely be haters? He did not see them. When he was posting on Weibo, he had already mastered the skill to automatically filter out haters. After browsing the forums for half a day, he put down his computer and suddenly had a vague feeling in his heart. He fiercely clapped his hands. It seemed that he had been going in the wrong direction all along. He always wanted to prove that he was the strongest in the world, so he had to win the International Invitational Tournament. Actually, looking at it now, this was a completely wrong way of thinking. Just like his racing, he did not participate in the WRC rally race that was broadcasted live on TV. Instead, he only created history in the Xianxia gambling race that was influential in the underground racing world. It was basically the same for the Dota incident. He did not necessarily have to win the official championship. He just had to become the undisputed strongest player that everyone knew at a glance. Everyone ridiculed God Wanjin every day, but they were just saying it. No one had really done it. In this way, I will take the throne of God Wanjin in the Chinese server, European server, American server, and Southeast Asian server. Regardless of whether I participate in the international competition or not, there will at least be countless people who will recognize me as the number one in the world, right? Suddenly he had a goal. He was relaxed and happy. He sprinted towards God Wanjin. In the next 7 days he really rushed to score points like crazy. His winning streak ended at 135 rounds. Not only did this not affect his condition, but it made him even more unstoppable. When he finally stopped rushing to score points, his celestial stairway points had already stopped at the terrifying number of 10,059. God Wanjin, who had been ridiculed for many years, finally turned from a joke to a reality. The whole country was jubilant. Even the professional player who added him as a friend was instructed by the team leader to ask him if he was interested in becoming a professional player. Actually, this professional player did not know that recently, Qin Guang had also become obsessed. Many times he simply placed the trash can beside him, vomiting as he played. Originally he could only play 15 rounds a day, but now he was forced to play a few more rounds. To others this was a game. But to Qin Guang, playing until the last few rounds every day was completely torture. Thus, he tactfully rejected the other party's invitation. It was not that he was incapable to become a professional player, but that he could not hold on. Other than that, in these 7 days Qin Guoli and Feng Rong went back to their hometown. Qin Guang happily drove the two of them back in his phaeton. As expected, Qin Guoli admitted his mistake. He treated his phaeton as a Passat and lectured him that even if he had some spare money now, he should not have bought a car that cost 200,000 to 300,000 yuan. He should have been more thrifty. Qin Guang was speechless. A person who spent 200,000 yuan to drink soup had the cheek to lecture him? He had wanted to stay in his hometown for a day, but when he reached home, Qin Guoli immediately chased him away. To put it nicely, he said, "Hurry back and prepare for the makeup exam. I have already asked your counselor. You have failed n number of classes this semester." Therefore Master Guang bitterly rushed back to Wujing that day. He did not dare to look for Zhou Xian, who had successfully complained. She had been immersed in the laboratory for the past 2 days. She had made a few phone calls, urging Qin Guang to quickly be her experimental assistant. But now was the crucial time to break through to God Wanjin. He did not want to be a strong man squatting in the laboratory, so he began to look for weapons to climb over the wall and prepare to fight the foreign server. The foreign server's God Wanjin was much easier to fight than the domestic server. Chapter 366. Even though he was using a wall-climbing weapon and the delay was much higher than the local server, Qin Guang was still able to play smoothly. However, there was one thing that gave him a headache. Even though he could always easily beat the other party into 20 rounds, he could not stand the fact that the points were too slow. In the past, as long as a person's level reached 13, they could participate in the Celestial Stairway solo tournament, but now it had suddenly become 50. It was really hard for him to love it. Azure, help me think of a way. The old man has thousands of killing skills, but he can only play in normal games. What should I do? After a day of hard fighting, Qin Guang looked at his level climbing like a tortoise. He had no choice but to complain to Azure. "I can play on your behalf." Azure finally said something sensible. Her figure gradually appeared. Thank goodness she was wearing a bikini this time. "Nice clothes, beautiful." Qin Guang flattered her decisively. Azure rolled her eyes at him. "Isn't it all because of you? The lustrous feather raiment has shrunk to this extent." Qin Guang had already cursed this scammer who used the godly power distribution machine 10,000 times in his heart. "You were the one who became a prodigal, But now you have the cheek to say that it was for me. What a drugstore scammer. In the end, what he said was, "Thank you for your hard work, my goddess. I will never forget your great kindness." You were just saying that I was a scammer, right? Alright, actually, Azure knew everything that Qin Guang was thinking. Don't mind those details. You really have to help me this time. Think about it, I'm only given a month's time and I have to dominate 4 servers. Although I'm strong enough, I don't have enough time. Based on my calculations, I'll need at least 3 months. Why don't you give me a little more time? Qin Guang and Azure laughed. It was so tiring to chat with the worm in his stomach. He had no privacy at all. What if he had sex with someone in the future? I'm not interested in your trivial matters. How big is a 3-inch piece of meat like you? When I revert to my original form, I'm tens of thousands of feet tall. When I spread my legs, the gap is tens of thousands of feet wide. When you crawl in, it's like a speck of dust. I don't even feel anything. Holy shit. Was there anything in this world that could hurt a man more than this? No, absolutely not. It's my loss, said Yi Futian. It's good that you know how powerful you are. Don't think that I'm interested in your trivial matters. Alright, let's put the matter of the celestial stairway aside for now. I'm personally playing for you. You're really giving me a hard life. It's bad enough that I'm your butler, but I actually have to help you level up in the game. I'm really a father and a mother at the same time, dragging you along with me. I'm really tired. But I'll say this up front. If I'm busy with this, I won't have time to sort out my business. If the investment fails, it'll be your own fault. Lily said with a straight face. In fact, she was thinking that she seemed to have boasted a little too much. It wasn't easy to be the butler of the Celestial Emperor's financial management. Looking at the few baskets of TV drama script analysis that she had sorted out and the simulated stock trading that was full of green, Lily turned her head and revealed a bright smile to Qin Guang, who was in the sky. Forget it. Since it's his money, there's no need to think too much about it. I really didn't expect that a mere mortal's business would be so complicated. It's my miscalculation. Even if I have tears in my eyes, I still have to hold on to the bragging. But no matter what, I have to keep my face in front of this brat. Now I can use the excuse of being his substitute player to shift the blame. I'll just find a suitable opportunity to spend his money. As for whether it'll be a profit or a loss, I'll leave it to the bell of destiny. Qin Guang also ridiculed in his heart. To be honest, let's not talk about the business you've learned. Even if you watch TV dramas for another year such as Golden Age and Golden Moon, it's still useless. Are you looking down on my business? Lily said in a gloomy tone. There's no way to continue this conversation. She knows everything I'm thinking. Qin Guang didn't feel good at all. Alright, I won't joke with you anymore. It's quite tiring to find out what you're thinking. In short, leave the celestial stairway to me. Within 12 days, I'll give you 8,000 points on the European, American, and Southeast Asian servers. As for the rest, you'll have to do it yourself. If I do it all, I'll become a substitute player and I won't be able to stand up. After saying that, Lioli intended to disappear again. Wait. I have a question. How can you get 8,000 points on 3 servers in 12 days? That's impossible. Also, do you know how to play Dota? Only then did Qin Guang realize the loophole in Lioli's words. She abruptly turned her head and looked at him from afar with a disdainful expression. She only said coldly, I'm Xianxia. In addition, I can play 3 games at the same time. Faster thief. 10,000 mythological beasts galloped through Qin Guang's mind. Every time he had played against Xianxia in the past, he had always been suppressed to the point where death was better than life. So it was her. This was even worse than opening a map. As soon as I had a thought in my mind, she knew it. What was the point of fighting? The old man didn't complain about his loss. In fact, when he had played against Xianxia, Qin Guang had also discovered the problem. In terms of operating level, she was actually not as good as him. The gap was very small, but he could feel it. The reason why he lost to her was because of the all-knowing hook that she used. Speaking of which, her 3 games were a bit scary. Was she the legendary goddess of tentacles? Tentacles in your face, this is called divine hook. Do you understand divine hook? Fine. You can do it. But you're only one person. 3 games, you don't believe it. Before he could finish speaking, Lioli, who was wearing a bikini, suddenly flashed and 2 identical figures appeared in the same place. The 3 identical figures uniformly grinned at Qin Guang. Are you afraid of God's shadow doppelganger technique? Teach me, teach me. Every man who had to deal with several girls at the same time dreamed of this divine art. Okay, wait until you upgrade the heavenly holy grail to 7 or 8 levels, then this emperor will teach you depending on my mood. For now, save it. Besides, the principle of the doppelganger technique is very complicated, and it's not as easy to explain in a few words. The me in the middle is the real me, and the me on the other two sides only knows how to play games and nothing else. As Liuli spoke, the bikini on her body began to fade again. Welfare of indiscriminate triplets bikini see-through outfit? Unfortunately, Liuli didn't give him the chance. Just as he was about to see the black shadows, the 3 figures simultaneously disappeared. Once this matter was settled, Qin Guang's 10 days of accumulating points could be considered to have come to an end. Actually, even without Liuli taking the initiative to say it, Qin Guang himself felt that he couldn't hold on any longer. He really couldn't be a professional player. To him, this was really just a leisure activity. Even without the hellish training from back then, he really couldn't be the kind of person who only played games all day and didn't care about anything else. When he played games for too long, it became a pain for him. Fortunately, he was temporarily free from it. After getting rid of the most troublesome and boring thing for the first time, Qin Guang felt that having Liuli around was really worry-free. Tomorrow he would go to Teacher Zhu's laboratory to take a look. If he didn't slow down his train of thought, he would really collapse. He decisively took out his phone and called Zhou Xian. It was almost evening, but she still seemed to be busy. When she heard that he was finally willing to come over, Zhou Xian was also very happy. After hanging up, she unconsciously rubbed the car key in her pocket and took out a stack of paper from the side of the laboratory table. On it was the Mercedes-Benz 400L temporary rental contract. These were the things that Zhou Xian, who had been distressed for the past few days, took out the time between experiments to sort out. She had no other way. Right now, the transfer of the car would cost at least tens of thousands of yuan. She definitely couldn't let Qin Guang pay for it. She had to pay for it herself. Zhou Xian really couldn't afford it, so she had no other choice. Moreover, Qin Guang might not agree to the transfer. After all, she still had to put on an act in front of her parents. If they found out that she had just bought the car, it would be a small matter if Qin Guang's boat was overturned. God knows how many more Zhoulongs would appear. She could only try to sign this contract with him. That way she would feel a little better. Even though she knew that he most likely wouldn't agree, she could only give it a try. Chapter 367. I definitely can't sign this contract. Teacher Zhou, don't waste your time. I just need to remember this. There's no need to put it on paper. Sure enough, when Qin Guang arrived at the lab the next morning, he shook his head violently when he saw Zhou Xian's contract. He refused to agree. Zhou Xian had dragged him to the office next door to talk about this. Hearing his loud objection, she was shocked. She desperately winked at him, telling him to keep his voice down. She said, "But if you don't sign it, I'll feel bad." Qin Guang waved his hand indifferently. "What are you feeling bad about? It's not like you don't know how rich I am. This is nothing. It's nothing. Also, look at what's written in the contract. The rental fee will be calculated according to the current market price. When the car is returned, it will be compensated. The rental period is about 1 to 2 years." Zhou Xian nodded blankly. "Yes, is there a problem?" Qin Guang grinned. "Then do you know how much a Mercedes-Benz E400L costs to rent?" "How much?" Zhou Xian hadn't checked, so she wasn't sure. She just felt that she should write this in. "At least 1,500. 1,500 a month? Can't be that cheap, right?" Qin Guang shook his head. 1,500 a day. Zhou Xian's face fell. 1,500 a day. How much would it cost to rent it for a year? She couldn't be bothered to calculate. She knew that it was an astronomical figure for her. Seeing her sad expression, Qin Guang smiled and patted her shoulder. "Alright, don't be like this. It's not a big deal. I really don't care about the money. It's you who insisted on keeping it in your heart. Now that I've said it out loud, you're so nervous. How can I say it out loud? But that's a car worth hundreds of thousands." Zhou Xian still couldn't understand. Qin Guang smiled. "You see, to you it's a car worth hundreds of thousands. But to me, let's calculate how much money I have. Let's say it's 180 million. This car is equivalent to 4/1000ths of my wealth. Teacher Zhou, how much is your monthly salary?" Zhou Xian nodded blankly. "More than 4,000. Then 4 thousandths of 4,000 is equal to 16. You see, to me this car is equivalent to you spending 16 yuan on lunch. You really don't have to worry about it. Qin Guang had used the same theory to trick Zhu Xian. Now he was using it again on Zhou Xian and the effect was just as good. Sure enough, she was tricked by Qin Guang. She straightened her neck and thought for a long time. When she looked at Qin Guang again, her eyes were much clearer. That seems to be the case. Yes, that's right. Let's go to the laboratory. You drive the car first. You can decide after I graduate. You can either return it to me or you can wait until you earn enough money to pay me back for the car. Just like you don't care if you eat $16 for lunch, I really don't care how much this car costs. Qin Guang made the final decision. Zhou Xian nodded and immediately threw a book to Qin Guang. Take a look at this book first. Memorize the determination methods of total nitrogen, total phosphorus, ammonia nitrogen and COTR. After saying that, she left in high spirits. In fact, there were some things that Zhou Xian did not say. These days she did not dare to drive the car to the school and had been parked in the neighborhood. However, there were many teachers who rented in the neighborhood and even more who had bought houses. Everyone worked in the same school. Even if they were not in the same school, they had some interaction with each other. Moreover, Zhou Xian was a doctoral student and was once the campus belle of Gokyo University. Not to mention anything else, just looking at her appearance, she was destined to be unable to keep a low profile. There were many single male workers in the neighborhood who would deliberately wait for her on the road from time to time, trying to please her. This was understandable, but there would always be people who could not stand it and were secretly jealous. Zhou Xian was not in the mood to care about what was going on in the neighborhood. She knew that there were rumors about her, but on one hand she had to do her job as a counselor. On the other hand, it was not easy to work with her tutor on a project. She did not have that much time to listen to other people's gossip. These days, because of this Mercedes-Benz, the rumors in the neighborhood that were originally hidden in the dark suddenly rose to a new level. She had just started working for less than half a year, and she was already driving a Mercedes-Benz. Moreover, it was not an ordinary car on the side of the road, but a Mercedes-Benz E400L. How could it not be eye-catching? Some time ago, when Zhou Long came here to pester Zhou Xian, he was seen by others. Although Zhou Xian had never let him into her house, the rumors did not stop. Gradually, the people in the neighborhood began to talk about it. They said that Zhou Xian and the pianist Zhou Long had succeeded, and that Zhou Long had bought a car and a house for her. In the first few days, Zhou Xian was very distressed, but she could not explain it to others. In the past few days, she gradually let it go. Her ideals had never changed. It was up to them how they liked to gossip, and it was none of her business. It was better to guess that it was Zhou Long than to let others know that the car was a gift from Qin Guang, right? A female counselor asked a boy in her class to give her a luxury car that cost 700,000 or 800,000. If this got out, it would really become big news. But even if she put this matter aside for the time being, she still felt that she owed Qin Guang. Regardless of whether she could pay him back in the future, Qin Guang had given her a car for free. In the end, she didn't give him any advantage and he didn't even get a name. Thus she suffered a great loss. It was also fortunate that she was a focused person. Even if her heart was heavy with countless trivial thoughts, once she entered the laboratory she immediately went into the zone. Zhou Xian could be said to be extremely successful in her studies. When she was studying for her undergraduate, she was disturbed by a lot of people because of her outstanding appearance. However, she did not have any distractions and devoted herself to her studies. At the age of 17, she was admitted to Gokyo University and completed her undergraduate studies in 3 years. In the same year, she was admitted to Gokyo University's famous professor, Xu Lirong, for her master's and doctoral studies. This year 4 years had passed. At the age of 24, Zhou Xian was already standing in front of the threshold of her doctoral thesis. Under Professor Xu's name, she was leading the research team to tackle the relatively new technology of photocatalytic degradation of organic phenolic compounds. Once it was completed, she would definitely take a big step forward in her academic career. Compared to Qin Guang, who was muddling along, Zhou Xian was the real genius. Most people of her age were still struggling with their master's thesis. In fact, a few years earlier she had many opportunities to go abroad, but she missed them all because of one reason or another. She did not regret it. As long as she did her research well, she could publish her doctoral thesis on CNS and successfully obtain her doctorate, she would immediately become a technical expert in the country. These things about Zhou Xian were not known to the entire environmental engineering class. She also did not like to show off in front of the undergraduate students. There was no real meaning to it. This time she had to call Qin Guang over. In her mind, it was a bit like a little girl purposely showing off in front of her little lover. After reading in the office for about 2 to 3 hours, Qin Guang made sure that he had memorized the measurement methods of the 4 indicators. He got up and walked to the laboratory next door with his book. After 3 years of undergraduate study, this was the first time he entered the school's laboratory building. Everywhere he went he felt fresh. Smelling the smell of medicine in the air, he felt that it was especially fresh. He stepped into the laboratory door. On the other side, Zhou Xian was looking at the data with a frown. She was thinking hard and then suddenly seemed to understand something. She picked up her notebook and wrote and drew. After organizing a pile of data, she let out a long sigh of relief. When she got up and turned around, she saw Qin Guang and was shocked. During the time that Zhou Xian was lost in thought, Qin Guang had already roughly looked at the members of her research team. Including herself, there were a total of 4 people in the laboratory. There was 1 guy and 2 girls. They looked like graduate students and should be members of Zhou Xian's research team. The 2 girls were average-looking and the guy was tall and handsome. However, in Qin Guang's eyes, he was inferior to him. It seemed that he had heard that he was coming. This guy's eyes were not very friendly. "Love rival? You're using your head to fight with me." Before Zhou Xian could speak, the guy took the initiative to speak. "You're Qin Guang, right? Oh, my name is Luo Jin. I'm also Professor Shu's graduate student. I've been doing experiments with Teacher Zhuo for 2 years. You're the first undergraduate student to come to our group to join in the fun." He said hello, but the first thing he did was show off that he and Zhou Xian had known each other for 2 years. Then he turned around and said that Qin Guang was here to join in the fun. He really did not come with good intentions. Chapter 368. Qin Guang thought that he had just arrived and this was just a whim. He might not want to come in a few days, so there was no need to fall out with this guy. Luo Jin was very hostile towards Qin Guang, but Qin Guang didn't see him as an opponent at all. Although Qin Guang treated Zhou Xian very well, he didn't have any other thoughts. Everyone was lustful and he couldn't deny that it felt good to peek at Zhou Xian's body, but that was it. He never thought that he would develop that kind of relationship with Zhou Xian. Besides, so what if this guy had known Zhou Xian for 2 years? The relationship between people couldn't be summarized by the length of time they had known each other. For example, Zhou Long and Zhou Xian had known each other since they were young, but in her heart, Zhou Long was probably no different from an annoying fly. Zhou Xian's mind was immersed in the experimental data, and she didn't notice Luo Jin's hostility towards Qin Guang at all. She didn't think much about it and called the other 2 girls over to introduce them to Qin Guang. Unlike Luo Jin's hidden hostility, these 2 senior sisters were quite friendly. One of them was called Hua Ling and her hometown was in the northeast. The other was called Zhongyu and she was slightly prettier than Hua Ling. She was actually from the same hometown as Qin Guang. It wasn't a far-fetched story, but a senior sister from the same high school in the same county. She graduated 2 years earlier than Qin Guang, and was now in her first year of postgraduate studies. Originally, Zhou Xian planned to arrange for Luo Jin, a senior in his 3rd year of postgraduate studies, to show Qin Guang around the laboratory. Since Zhongyu and Qin Guang were from the same hometown, she might as well take the initiative to do this. Qin Guang was also happy to make such an arrangement. He didn't want to deal with Luo Jin. Luo Jin was a little unhappy, but he didn't say anything in the end. He just went to do his own things. "Qin Guang, watch me do it once and familiarize yourself with the process of the experiment. Today you're here with your eyes. Watch first, understand first, and help me from time to time. It's your turn to do the experiment in 2 days." Zhongyu said happily. She was quite happy to meet an old friend in a foreign land and she was quite cheerful. Qin Guang nodded. "Thank you for your guidance, senior sister." Zhou Xian's experimental topic was neither big nor small. Using photocatalysts to catalyze the degradation of pollutants in water bodies. Similar research has been done for a long time in the world, but each person's research direction was different. Zhou Xian is targeting phenolic organic compounds. Combined with the current situation of the domestic pulp and paper industry, if a suitable direction can be explored, It is bound to effectively reduce the emission of volatile phenolic pollutants and further reduce the total amount of dioxin pollutants. It was easier said than done. There are many types of photocatalysts and the research difficulty is not small. Zhou Xian spent a whole 2 years just to get started. The analysis of the catalytic decomposition effect of a single photocatalyst is her master's graduation thesis. Later, she found that the effect of the mixed type of catalyst has been improved, and the cost of water treatment has been greatly reduced. It can be further explored from the laboratory stage to industrial application. There are as many as dozens of photocatalyst materials, and some of the precious metals are extremely expensive. With her status as a doctoral student, it is impossible to maintain such a huge research project. Fortunately, her supervisor, Xu Lirong, recognized her research results and intervened in time to further expand this original master's thesis topic and declare it as a big project. Zhou Xian only needs to be responsible for the exploration of the catalytic effect of the mixture of 3 materials. As a doctoral thesis, although it still seems too high-end, it is barely achievable. Even so, it is not easy. She has to constantly explore, constantly adjust the mixing ratio of the 3 materials, and then continue to explore the optimal ratio, which is the best concentration of the reaction. How many grams of photocatalyst powder is the most suitable for 1 liter of phenol wastewater? This was another huge problem. The effect of catalytic degradation was not necessarily better with more photocatalysts. In addition, if the cost was so high that it could not be applied in the industry, then the scientific research project would become a castle in the air, and there would be no way to start. In addition, it is necessary to polish the most suitable light wavelength for the photocatalytic reaction and constantly fine-tune the absorbed light wavelength to determine the catalytic effect. In short, there may be differences in the effect of ultraviolet light at 400 nanometers and ultraviolet light at 395 nanometers. When it comes to visible light and infrared light, the workload is outrageous. In addition, the concentration of phenol pollutants in the sewage also has to be deliberately explored and constantly changed from 0.001 mg/L to 100 mg per liter. This is the magic of photochemistry. When you can't find the most suitable point, you may not feel obvious changes even if you constantly fine-tune the parameters. But once you think about the critical point, it is very likely that the effect of the entire reaction will change instantly. Take the boiling point of some organic solvents, for example. The temperature has not reached the boiling point. Even if the heater has been heating up, the solvent in the flask has never changed at all. It looks like it is frozen. But once the critical point is reached, the solvent quickly boils up. Studying the catalytic effect of photocatalysts is much more complicated than this principle, but the principle is the same. Zhou Xian's entire research project is composed of countless random parameter changes. The ratio of different photocatalyst materials is constantly adjusted, from 33 to 98, 1. The quality of the catalyst material is constantly changing, from 1 mg to several grams per liter of sewage. The pollution concentration of phenol wastewater is from low concentration to medium concentration to high concentration. The absorbed light wavelength is changed from infrared to ultraviolet, and the wavelength changes are nanometers by nanometers. The difficulty is no less than Edison trying more than 6,000 materials to invent the light bulb. Modern scientific research, especially this kind of scientific research close to the basic disciplines, has always been so boring. Only under the premise of constantly accumulating a large amount of data can one approach the essence of science step by step. Even if you know that you are facing tens of thousands of possibilities, you can only climb forward step by step like Prometheus. Professor Xu now leads nearly 10 doctoral students. In addition to Zhou Xian, a total of 5 doctoral students lead 4 other teams, each tackling the catalytic effect of different catalyst materials. Zhou Xian has been trapped in this project since she started her PhD. During this period, she has experienced several major setbacks. For example, in the beginning she had chosen nanoiron dioxide, zinc dioxide and silicon dioxide as the entry point, and had chosen platinum as the coordination chelation material. However, after a year of suffering and accumulating a large amount of data, she suddenly had the idea to change the silicon dioxide to strontium titanate. Now, the effect was better than all the previous 3 materials and she had to start all over again. In fact, she does not really expect herself to be able to determine all the parameters and find the most perfect point. This is unrealistic. But this does not matter. Even if her entire project is a complete failure, as long as she can sort out a large amount of her own data, make a data curve and submit it to international scientific journals, she can also obtain a large SCI impact factor. Even if it is a failed research, it is equivalent to eliminating the possibility of failure for others. It is still a scientific research result and can also be completed as a doctoral thesis. If there is really someone in the world who can try all photocatalysts, find the most perfect ratio from dozens of materials, and then determine the reaction concentration of phenolic wastewater, absorbed light wavelength, reaction time and other parameters, and find the reaction conditions that can break the chain of phenolic organic compounds at the lowest cost and the highest efficiency, it would not be too much to give a Nobel Prize. But obviously this is not something that can be achieved overnight. In the process of research, luck is off the charts, or rather, more manpower and material resources. After dozens of teams work together and constantly fine-tune the parameters, they can generally find a direction that can be applied on an industrial scale. Then they can almost produce a product. Perhaps it is still far from perfect, but this half-baked product can also be taken out to make a mixed liquid photocatalyst fluid and sold on the market. What awaits the project team will be amazing profits, and at the same time, it can open up the difficult situation of phenolic pollutants in the country. The scope that Qin Guang can participate in now is a little further. In the corner of the huge laboratory, there is a set of biochemical treatment simulator. In this simulator, it can generally reflect the biodegradability of phenolic pollutants after the chain is broken. This is the smallest point in the scope of industrial application. This is actually Zhou Xian's worst-case scenario. If she really can't make a breakthrough in the general direction, then she will start from a small point and specifically implement the process of microbial biochemical reactions. Phenolic pollutants have an inhibitory effect on the activity of the core factors in biochemical treatment. After part of the chain is broken, the activity of the microorganisms can be increased, and the biochemical treatment effect can be further improved. The exploration of this matter is almost enough to write a paper. This was how basic scientific research was like. A big topic could be written from different perspectives. As long as it had something to say, it could prove something or disprove something, and it could be considered a scientific achievement. As long as your paper can be published in a journal and recognized, it is considered that you have a certain academic influence in the discipline. Neither Xu Lirong nor Zhou Jingxi expected to really complete this great research. However, in the process of research, Zhou Jingxi alone has published more than 10 papers in foreign journals, an average of one every 2 months. The doctoral leaders of the other 4 groups are not much worse than Zhou Jingxi. In addition, the Photocatalyst Environmental Protection Application Laboratory of Gokyo University, which is composed of 5 groups, passed the selection and became one of the only 3 national key laboratories of Gokyo University. As for whether the real product can be produced, no one has much hope. Even the internationally renowned large scientific research institutions have invested a lot of manpower and material resources in the past few years. In April 2015, Tokyo University announced that they have really explored a usable photocatalyst water purification technology, but it is still a long way from widespread application. The reason why the country supports this laboratory is also very simple. Professor Xu Lirong, the discipline leader, is currently working here. Professor Xu has gone further than others in this research, and there is hope for the level of scientific research to catch up with the international advanced level. Industrial application may be 10 years later, but if they don't do it now, they will never catch up with foreign countries. This is something that they know is impossible, but they have to do it. This is the norm of modern scientific research. It is precisely because there are thousands of people quietly doing this kind of thankless work that human science and technology can continue to advance. The advancement of basic scientific research is particularly difficult, but once there is a substantial result, it can really take a big step forward. Taking Edison as an example, before the discovery that tungsten filament can be used to make incandescent lamps, most people in the world had to live in darkness at night. However, with the birth of incandescent lamps, in just a few years, thousands of households were illuminated. Some people rose to the sky in a single step in difficult exploration, but one success is built on the bones of thousands of people. More people spend their lives in obscurity. Under Zhong Yu's constant help and introduction, Qin Guang spent 5 days to measure the ammonia, nitrogen, total phosphorus, total nitrogen and CO2 of the wastewater before and after the biochemical treatment. At the same time, he also gained a deeper understanding of how terrifying Zhou Xian's actions were. He couldn't help but be in awe. Chapter 369. Qin Guang admired Zhou Xian. In fact, Zhou Xian was also secretly observing Qin Guang during the experiment. It had to be said that the first time he did an experiment, Zhou Xian's eyes lit up. The reason was simple. Zhou Xian had been doing experiments for more than 4 years and was extremely familiar with the operation of various instruments. However, Qin Guang showed a different side in his first attempt. His hands were really too steady and fast. The experiment to determine the concentration of ammonia, nitrogen, and total phosphorus was not very technical. In actual operation, it was just holding a pipette gun and constantly moving the constant temperature heater and water bath pot. The main work involved the addition of sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acid, and other chemicals. During the experiment, the chemicals were added in test tubes one after another. A fast person might only need 30 seconds to drip 10 times of sulfuric acid, but a slow person's hands kept shaking and might not even be able to finish in 5 minutes. Just this small detail could open up a gap of 4.5 minutes. When magnified to the entire experiment process, the difference was terrifying. However, this was not what made Qin Guang special. He was obviously only an undergraduate student, but his thinking was extremely clear. At first, he was still blind and only knew how to move the solvents and use a spectrophotometer to measure the absorbance. After watching Zhou Yu do it once, he could calculate the standard curve himself. That was not all. On the 6th day, when he finished the experiment and got off work, he packed his things in the office and prepared to go home. Qin Guang took the initiative to find her and asked her why the biochemical simulator, which consisted of an anaerobic tank and 2 aerobic pools, was designed this way, and why the ratio of different pool sizes was different. He also asked why the parameters such as residence time and pH value were adjusted this way. When he asked her why the anaerobic tank and the 2 aerobic pools had a pollutant removal rate of 80%, 55%, and 35% respectively, Zhou Xian was completely stunned. Zhou Xian was stunned for a long time. Her brain, which had been numb from all the experiments, finally came back to her senses. She looked at him quietly. "I've seen your academic results for the past few years. Although you didn't fail many subjects, you didn't get more than 90 marks in any of them. I thought you didn't like studying, so I wanted to bring you to the lab to experience the atmosphere. Only now do I feel that you've really wasted your brain." She was a little angry as she said that. She stretched out her fair finger and poked Qin Guang's forehead. "My heart aches for you. You're so smart, why don't you spend some time learning?" Qin Guang scratched his head in embarrassment. "You can't blame me. The atmosphere in our dormitory is like that." In the beginning, everyone applied for this major because environmental protection was a new industry and it would be easier to find a job in the future. But most of the seniors who graduated early went to work for companies to write fake postgraduate studies or environmental impact assessments. Or if they had a better footing, they would take the civil service exam. But the other 50% of them had changed careers. They feel that there's no future in their major and they can't be serious even if they want to. They all think that they'll change careers in the future anyway. As Qin Guang said that, Zhou Xian also sighed. He was not talking nonsense. Gokyo University was already one of the first universities in the country to set up an undergraduate major in environmental science. It could barely be considered as an academic pioneer among the universities in the country. But after the undergraduate students graduated, other than those who went on to do postgraduate studies, the number of people who actually continued to work in the environmental protection industry was really less than 50%. Zhou Xian said unwillingly, "But that's the situation of others. With your brain, if you put in a little effort, it won't be a problem for you to get into postgraduate studies. Even if you can't stay in school after you graduate, it'll be enough for you to work as a project staff in some research institute." Qin Guang shrugged. "I'm lazy. I've been staying in the laboratory recently. Seeing that you guys are so serious and busy, I can't help but think about some things." In fact, he didn't finish his sentence, but Zhou Xian understood. She suddenly realized that the person standing in front of her was a man with a net worth of almost 200 million yuan. It seemed unrealistic to ask him to be a research worker. She felt unwilling, but then she thought about how poor she was now. She was in no position to scold him. After a while she said, "Forget it, I won't talk about you anymore. Seeing that you've been so serious these past few days, I'll treat you to a meal? Qin Guang agreed. The two of them packed up for a while and walked out side by side. They saw Luo Jin standing outside with a book in his arms. It seemed like he did not expect Qin Guang to walk out side by side with Zhou Xian. He was caught off guard by the scene. Luo Jin, what's the matter? Zhou Xian asked. Luo Jin hesitated for a while, then pinched his nose and placed the book in front of Zhou Xian. Teacher Zhou, I've been reading a case recently. I want to ask your opinion on this kind of high-concentration wastewater with excessive sulfate ions. Before he could finish, Zhou Xian did not take his book. I have something to do today, so I have to leave first. You can ask me tomorrow. I'm sorry. Luo Jin did not expect her to reject him so easily. He was stunned for a while before he nodded helplessly. Oh, okay. The two of them went downstairs. Qin Guang said with a smile, he wants to treat you to a meal. In front of Qin Guang, Zhou Xian did not lie and replied, I know. That's why I stopped him from talking. Luo Jin is a graduate student who was forced to come here. His brain is quite stiff when it comes to academics, but he is very thoughtful in other aspects. What do you mean? Previously, he found all kinds of reasons to treat me to a meal several times. At that time, I did not think too much about it. I thought he really wanted to ask me some questions, but guess what I saw? Can you not keep me guessing? A candlelight dinner. Makes me sick. I'm so busy. Isn't this a waste of my time? Hearing those words, Qin Guang nearly burst out laughing. How bold was that brother of his? He must have watched too many dramas and thought that a candlelight dinner could move a woman. The two of them sat in a small restaurant outside the school and watched her eat like she was fighting a war. She was probably busy going back to organize the data after the meal. Qin Guang said, Teacher Zhou, you can eat slower. Why didn't I notice this before? I still remember when you first came to be our counselor. You were so delicate. We all thought you relied on your face to make a living. Zhou Xian's mouth was full of food. She said with a whimper. I'm used to it. I can't slow down. Actually, I really admire you. Photocatalysts. I can't even count the permutations in my mind and I'm about to collapse. I don't know how you survived. I always feel that you may have worked for 10 years for nothing. Zhou Xian heard him talk about professional things and became interested. She put down her bowl and chopsticks and took a big gulp of water. That's true, but you have to think about it this way. If someone could really find a suitable ratio and chelate method for dozens of photocatalysts such as silica, platinum, rhodium, palladium and other photocatalysts, then determine all the reaction parameters, make a finished product, and use this kind of recyclable catalytic reaction material to remove more than 90% of the refractory phenolic pollutants. How much help would that be to mankind? Without waiting for Qin Guang to speak, she became excited again. It's not just phenolic pollutants. There are also lipids and even conventional CODCR or nitrogen and phosphorus. There are also dioxins that are more difficult to deal with. These things can be dealt with using the strong oxidation of the photocatalysis environment. Once you figure it out, think about it. Put a photocatalyst grid in a very polluted river, and when visible light shines on it, it can catalyze and degrade pollutants. These things that harm future generations can be turned into carbon dioxide, into non-toxic and harmless organic substances for the benefit of future generations. How great of an achievement would that be? Qin Guang was stunned. I understand the logic, but it's too difficult. I've checked on the internet. At present, most of the people doing this in China are just hype. But you can't deny that it can really be done. Zhou Xian was not convinced. We are a national key laboratory. I've already written more than 10 papers published in SCI journals. This is not hype. This is knowledge. Okay, you're right. Knowledge, it's knowledge. Qin Guang did not intend to argue with her. No matter how good the prospects she said were, it was really too difficult. Strictly speaking, just the ratio of dozens of materials, the ratio of coordination and chelation of precious metals, and finding the optimal reaction concentration, the possibilities were simply infinitely large. What was even more frightening was that after you found a seemingly perfect ratio through continuous elimination, your perfect ratio would inexplicably be destroyed again when you changed the lighting conditions. This was simply a bottomless pit. Qin Guang thought to himself as he looked at the familiar figure flashing by the window outside the small shop. Although he did not really agree with Zhou Xian's philosophy, she was indeed worthy of respect. Maybe I really will be stuck in this for the rest of my life, but I have no regrets. Even if it's to help others with elimination, at least I've become a brick in the building of science, don't you think so? Qin Guang sent Zhou Jingxi to the entrance of the neighborhood. When the two separated, Zhou Jingxi said this. Qin Guang nodded. If you really are stuck in it for the rest of your life, I see that you have no plans to find someone to marry. You're too poor to feed yourself. I'll support you. F***CKU. I'm still hoping that you can really do it. I feel that this is quite profitable. If you can make it into a unique product and sell it, the cost will be tens of thousands of yuan. A complete set of equipment can easily be sold for tens of millions. As long as the effect is good, there will be customers. Taking care of you is my investment. Dream on. I'm in Teacher Shu's laboratory. All the results belong to the laboratory. How can I let you sell them for money? Not long after separating from Zhou Jingxi, Qin Guang was stopped by Luo Jin. I knew you would come to me. Just say what you want to say. Qin Guang crossed his hands and looked at the angry bull-like senior with an indifferent face. He thought to himself, what a poor guy. Stay away from Teacher Zhou. Luo Jin opened his mouth and said. Qin Guang almost laughed out loud. He did not have much contact with Luo Jin these past few days. Although he felt that his hostility was always there, he kept it to himself in the laboratory. Today he had dinner with Zhou Jingxi and this guy could not hold it in anymore. He thought that he had some level of understanding, but how could he be so impulsive when he opened his mouth? Recalling that he actually invited Zhou Jingxi to a candlelit dinner, Qin Guang vaguely felt that Luo Jin's nerve circuit could not be a straight line, right? Chapter 370. In a sense, Luo Jin was really a talent. Reason. Qin Guang was still clasping his hands, smiling without saying anything. The first time they met, this person tried to intimidate him. He didn't pay attention to him at that time, but now he was doing it again. Luo Jin was stunned. He thought that Qin Guang would run away, but he didn't expect to be questioned instead. Obviously, he didn't know what to say next. In fact, Luo Jin had heard about Qin Guang before. Wang Ren was a celebrity in the college and he was in charge of everything. Although most of his power was concentrated in the undergraduates, many postgraduates and doctoral students in the college had been undergraduates, so there was a lot to say about Wang Ren. For example, postgraduates like Luo Jin, Hua Ling, and Zhong Yu didn't need to deal with Wang Ren, but they all thought that he would continue to dominate the college until the end of time. But suddenly one day he disappeared from Jianhuan Academy. After asking around a little, he found out that he had been brought down by someone, and this was done by an undergraduate student. There was a lot of gossip involved, and there were many other teachers who witnessed it in the conference room, so the people in the engineering class didn't deliberately hide it. Thus, Qin Guang's reputation rose along with it. If it was just an ordinary undergraduate student following Zhou Jingxi to the lab, Luo Jin wouldn't think too much about it. But Qin Guang was an influential person in the college. Seeing the two of them walking out of the office together, Luo Jin couldn't help but make wild guesses. For some strange reason, he had quietly followed the two of them out of the school. Then he saw the two of them eating together and their attitudes were exceptionally intimate. He thought about the few times he had invited Teacher Zhou to eat. She had either politely rejected him, or found an excuse to leave after 2 bites of food. At this moment, Luo Jin finally couldn't sit still anymore. This was the reason why he jumped out to obstruct Qin Guang's path. But now that Qin Guang asked him about it, what was the reason? You're still an undergraduate. You should focus on your studies. This is a national key laboratory. You'll only be a hindrance. Luo Jin thought for a long time and finally found a suitable excuse. Hearing those words, Qin Guang's smile grew even more radiant. This fellow was clearly here to cause trouble, but he's so innocent that it's hard to hate him. Senior, why don't you think of a more reliable explanation? I've been in the laboratory for a few days now, so which eye of yours saw that I'm more of a hindrance to you? Zhong Yu was supposed to be busy with the ammonia, nitrogen and total phosphorus testing, but I helped her do it today. She was also freed to help Teacher Zhou with the photocatalyst pretreatment. That's not a hindrance, right? Luo Jin wasn't Qin Guang's opponent when it came to bickering with words. It was also because Qin Guang didn't want to ruin Zhou Jingxi's reputation. Otherwise he could just reveal the matter of the Mercedes-Benz E400L, and a brat like Luo Jin would be sent flying. He felt wronged. When he was a graduate student he was working with another PhD student. Later he met Zhou Xian at a meeting and fell in love at first sight with this beautiful PhD student who was the same age as him. He felt extremely wronged. When he had just been admitted as a postgraduate student, he was originally working with another PhD student. Later he happened to see Zhou Xian at a meeting and fell in love at first sight with this beautiful PhD student who was the same age as him. Even if he did not hesitate to offend others, he had to beg his grandfather and grandmother to switch to Zhou Xian's project team. 2 years had passed and he had indeed changed from a fresh and hot graduate student to a barely qualified research dog. He could help Zhou Xian with the experiment, but she kept her distance from him. Luo Jin also understood. His family was average and his academic ability was not as good as Zhou Xian's. His academic qualifications were also lower than hers, but he always wanted to move her with his true feelings. He thought that a strong research woman like her would always need a gentle and considerate man to care for her. Of course he was the best choice. He persisted until Qin Guang, the fresher and hotter undergraduate student, suddenly appeared in the laboratory. Qin Guang and Zhou Xian would accidentally reveal their intimate attitudes from time to time, making the stubborn Luo Jin unable to eat or sleep in peace. He didn't think too much about it, but now he realized that he couldn't win against the other party. Alright, don't look so sad. You were the one who came to pick a fight, but you make it seem like I'm bullying you. Let's go our separate ways. I'm only in the mood to come to the laboratory for a while. When school starts next semester, you won't be able to see me even if you want to. Qin Guang finished speaking and left. After a few words today he had seen through Luo Jin. Zhou Xian was right. His thinking was rigid and somewhat self-righteous. If he really was a genius student he could be of great help to Zhou Xian in scientific research and maybe Qin Guang would be a little more vigilant. But with his current appearance he could at most be a research laborer if he worked hard for the rest of his life. He would be slightly higher than a research dog, but the gap between him and Zhou Xian would only get bigger and bigger. Zhou Xian was a person who put her heart and soul into learning, so there was no way she would waste her time on someone like that. She still allowed him to stay on the project team because he was a simple-minded person, and it was convenient to use him in experiments. Seeing Qin Guang walk away without looking back, Luo Jin's face turned green and white. In the end he could only pinch his nose and go back dejectedly. The next day Qin Guang arrived at the laboratory a little late. When he entered the door he saw that the laboratory was covered with dark clouds, and everyone had worried expressions. What's wrong? Qin Guang walked up and asked. Luo Jin looked at him and didn't answer. Zhou Xian frowned and sat on the chair thinking about something. She didn't seem to notice that Qin Guang had come. Zhong Yu explained, our atomic spectrometer is malfunctioning. It will take at least 3 to 4 days for the maintenance to come. The malfunction is quite serious and we don't know how long it will take to fix it. Qin Guang wondered, can we borrow it from the lab next door? Zhong Yu shook her head, not our team. The imported one used by the entire lab is broken and we can't borrow it. The domestic ones aren't accurate and the data produced isn't accurate. On the other side, Zhou Xian thought for a while and suddenly took out her phone to make a call. After Zhou Xian left the room, Luo Jin suddenly said, Qin Guang, go do your own thing. The spectrometer has nothing to do with your experiment, so don't stand here and cause trouble. Brother Luo, why are you talking like that? Hua Ling, who was next to him, argued. Qin Guang looked at this northeastern senior. He didn't expect her to have such a strong sense of justice. Zhong Yu also looked at Luo Jin unhappily. Obviously, this senior who came for Zhou Xian didn't get the respect of Hua Ling and Zhong Yu. Luo Jin's face darkened. What did I say? He has never used an atomic spectrometer before. He's just an undergraduate. Did I say something wrong? Chapter 371. So what if we're undergraduates? Who didn't start as undergraduates? Even if we don't know how to use it now, won't we learn it after reading the manual? Zhong Yu also started arguing with Luo Jin. She really could not stand this simple-minded senior. In the past they only interacted with each other in experiments. His overly simple-minded personality could be of some help when dealing with data, but now with the addition of Qin Guang he had completely become a troublemaker. It was said that one should help one's relatives but not reason. Qin Guang and Zhong Yu had graduated from the same high school. Even if they had only known each other for a short time, their relationship was much closer. Moreover, Luo Jin was not in the right. Luo Jin was stunned. He did not expect that in just a few days he would become the outcast. He snorted and took out a book from the drawer beside him, slamming it on the table. Fine, you said he will learn it after reading the manual. Fine, take a look. Can you understand it? Luo Jin's last sentence was directed at Qin Guang. The three of them turned to look at the book on the table. The manual for the imported equipment was, of course, in English. Zhou Yu was quick-witted and immediately realized that Luo Jin was purposely making things difficult for Qin Guang. I'll translate for him. Reading the manual with a translator? Are you here to do experiments or to be a big boss? Luo Jin finally got cocky. Qin Guang had a crooked smile on his face. It seemed that his reputation in the school was not big enough. These people only knew that he had chased Wang Ren away, but they did not know how the feud between him and Wang Ren came about. If he knew a thing or two, he would not have dared to talk about it in front of him. It was all in English. How could he do that? You said I can't understand it? Qin Guang waved his hand, indicating that Zhou Yu did not need to worry. He grabbed the manual and began to read it. He read the first 2 sentences in English, and it was the old-fashioned way. His pronunciation was perfect and his pronunciation was clear. He read it as soon as he picked it up, unlike the other students who had to ponder over it for a while. Luo Jin and the other 2 had yet to recover from their shock when Qin Guang suddenly switched to Mandarin. This was even more frightening. His eyes were looking at the English version, but his mouth was able to speak Chinese without any hindrance. He spoke extremely fast and did not stutter. He did not even use his brain at all. Simultaneous translation was nothing more than this. There were some self-taught undergraduates who were particularly interested in English, but unless they were really English majors or language geniuses, under normal circumstances, how could an undergraduate be so fluent in English? Even a doctor like Zhou Xian was far from being able to do this. Zhou Yu smiled until her eyes squinted. Qin Guang really didn't embarrass the people of Lilai County. Luo Jin did not make a sound. He did not want to admit that he was actually very jealous of Qin Guang. His English was not very good, and every time he read foreign language literature and the operating manuals of imported equipment, it would be very painful. Therefore, he deliberately wanted to use this matter to mock Qin Guang. He did not expect to hit his head on the wall. At this time, Zhou Xian walked in from outside and saw that Qin Guang was reading the manual. She already knew that Qin Guang's English was very good, so she did not bother to ask more. The haze on her face eased a little. Just now, Professor Xu helped to contact the school. He said that the School of Chemical Engineering has an analyzer that is temporarily vacant. I can borrow it. Although it is a little troublesome to take the samples and run to and fro, it will be over after a few days. Then she asked Luo Jin and Zhou Yu to communicate with the School of Chemical Engineering. Professor Xu had already contacted them, so temporarily borrowing the vacant equipment was not a big deal. Brother Luo, you don't have to be so hostile to Qin Guang. I think he is very good. Downstairs, Zhou Yu could not help but say this. Luo Jin was not happy. Zhou Yu, what do you mean? I know that you and he are from the same hometown, but you can't think that I am making things difficult just because you have a good relationship with him, right? What did I say wrong? What's wrong? Qin Guang has helped me a lot. He stood there without moving and you say that he is causing trouble? Also, why do you look down on him just because he is an undergraduate? You can't just read the manual, can you? Luo Jin turned his head away and did not dare to look at the aggressive Zhou Yu. I just thought that the average undergraduate is like that. How would I know that his English is so good? Anyway, I am not looking down on him. He was determined to act shamelessly and Zhou Yu could not do anything about it. She knew that it was useless to say anything, so she could only sigh. In the laboratory, Qin Guang finally had the opportunity to follow Zhou Xian to learn about photocatalysts. Zhou Xian taught him from the bottom of her heart, but Qin Guang only listened for a while before he felt dizzy. It was not his fault that he did not have enough brain power. It was purely because he did not learn a lot of knowledge at the undergraduate level. For example, chelation reaction. He knew every word and he could read the words that were combined together. He could also understand what this thing was about by searching it on the encyclopedia. However, when it came to the specific formation process of chelation, the formation of electron coordination bonds, and the principle of atomic stress, he was at a loss. To be more specific, to understand the principle of photochemical reactions, he also had to understand the principle of enthalpy and entropy changes. It was tragic to say that the preliminary study of these theories was in the course of physical chemistry. As a generation of last-minute grinding king who did not even go to the exam and was still studying courseware, Qin Guang felt that the formulas that he barely remembered were still miles away from practical application. Qin Guang was in so much pain that he wanted to die, but Zhou Xian was talking excitedly. She really enjoyed this feeling. Facing him as a counselor wanting to be his teacher was basically a failure. He could not bring out the dignity of a teacher at all. Fortunately, I am still a good researcher. Looking at his worshipful eyes, I feel really satisfied. If Qin Guang knew what Zhou Xian was thinking at this moment, he might want to poke his eyes with his fingers. Teacher Zhou, this look of mine is called worship? Can't you see that behind my sparkling eyes, there is a capital letter of confusion? Teacher Zhou, can you let me go to the toilet? Qin Guang could not hold it in anymore. It was not that he could not hold it in and wanted to go to the toilet, but his head was about to explode from Zhou Xian's bombardment. He only felt that the sky above his head was filled with complex formulas that he had never seen or heard of before. Her eloquent manner looked like she was teaching someone, but in reality she was talking to herself. Qin Guang was dumbfounded and Hua Ling, who was next to him, was barely able to hear it. However, Zhou Xian herself did not notice it at all. People who were obsessed with scientific research would often be in this state. It seemed like they were discussing with someone else, but in fact, their brain had already started to spin quickly, and it was basically the same as talking to themselves. After strolling outside for a few minutes, Qin Guang estimated that Zhou Xian had already gotten over it. He dared to walk back and saw that Zhou Xian had already started to look at the samples with her head down. He let out a long sigh of relief. Going to the toilet was really useful. However, just as he sat down, Zhou Xian suddenly turned around and saw him. She smiled and said, "You're finally back. Where was I?" Faster, see. Qin Guang hurriedly waved his hand. Teacher Zhou, you can continue with the experiment first. No rush, no rush. We have to wait for the atomic spectrometer to be finalized before we can do the next step. Right now we're just doing some preparatory work. Listen to me, each different nanoscale catalyst material has different properties. After we mix these things together, who can save me? Qin Guang really wanted to find a piece of tape to cover her mouth. Teacher Zhou, I know the principles you're talking about are very powerful, but I really don't understand. At this moment, Luo Jin walked in from outside the laboratory. Zhou Xian saw this and quickly left Qin Guang behind and walked to the door. Luo Jin, did you guys ask? What did the Faculty of Chemical Engineering say? Did you get the lab key? Although Qin Guang did not really like this second-year student, at this moment, Qin Guang basically regarded him as his savior. When he heard Zhou Xian's question, Luo Jin opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he hesitated. Behind him, Zhongyu also walked in with tears on her face. Teacher Zhou, the head of the Faculty of Chemical Engineering, he. Chapter 372. Wang Ren was sitting in his office with a smug smile on his face. He had indeed left the Jianhuan Academy with his tail between his legs. But his situation did not become worse because of this. His old uncle did not listen to him and gave him a good job, the head of the Laboratory Equipment Management Department of the School of Chemical Engineering. There were policies from above and there were countermeasures from below. Although the leaders of Jianhuan School and even Wang Ren's uncle did not want to have a bad relationship with Wu Shan, but we can't afford to offend you, so we avoided you. Since we know that this student has some relationship with you, we will move to another place and no longer appear in front of you. This result can be considered as an explanation to everyone, right? These things were nothing more than giving each other a way out and saving each other's face. Of course, Wang Ren's uncle was the vice principal of Gokyo University. His administrative rank was the same as Wu Shan's, so he had students all over the world. After inquiring a bit more, in the eyes of the vice principal, Wu Shan and that kid from the Building Ring Academy only had a slight relationship with Wu Tong. They were just friends between juniors and Wu Shan had only helped him with a small matter. If they really wanted to fight to the death, he believed that Wu Shan did not think that it was necessary. They still had to give each other some face. Since Wu Shan did not pursue the matter after that day, the school naturally followed the vice principal's decision to deal with Wang Ren from the east to the west. The School of Chemical Engineering was one of the larger schools in Gokyo University. As the name implied, the experimental projects of this school had always been the most important. It had the largest laboratory building in Gokyo University, and the total investment of the experimental equipment was more than 100 million. Wang Ren's job was a high-end one. He was responsible for the daily maintenance of many of the experimental equipment in the chemical engineering building. If there was a need to buy new equipment, he could also help. This was a lucrative job and it was very easy. Although it was a maintenance job, what he had to do was to call the manufacturer when the equipment broke down and ask the manufacturer to repair it. Compared to when he was in Jianhuan school, his income did not decrease. In these 2 to 3 months, his income had increased several times. He was also regretting it. If he had known that there would be such an easy job to earn money, he wouldn't have bothered staying in the academic affairs office of Jianhuan Academy and working himself to death to do all those things. Not only did he not get much money from the undergraduate students, but he also ended up with a bad reputation, and there was also the risk that he would be exposed at any time. It was much easier now. He picked up the teacup, took a sip, leaned back on the rocking chair and sighed. Alas, everything is good here, but I don't have the opportunity to contact little girls. The chemical engineering faculty is full of monks, the girls who can study in this broken school. Alas. Wang Ren wasn't talking nonsense. It wasn't that there weren't any beauties in the chemical engineering department, but the ratio was too low. Especially the female straight-A students. To put it bluntly, their looks were basically below average. For Wang Ren, who was used to young and beautiful girls, it was like heaven and earth. The Jianhuan College is still better. Even though the graduate student who just came is far from Sun Xiaoxuan, who is in Qin Guang's class, he is still not bad. It's been a few months since I've seen a girl that I like. I should lower my standards appropriately. Wang Ren sighed again. Thinking of the comfortable days in the past, he still felt a little regretful. But it didn't matter. The people from the Construction Ring Academy deserved to be unlucky. Didn't they just walk right into a trap? A little earlier, the head of the chemistry department asked him to help arrange the equipment for a research group in the Construction Ring Academy. At that time he was already unhappy. He was someone who left that place with his tail between his legs. How could he be nice when he saw them? Don't blame me for being rude. In fact, he didn't really expect to get anyone because of this small matter. It was just that he couldn't hold back the anger in his heart when he met a student from the Construction Ring Academy. When the people from the research group came back to the leader of the chemical engineering faculty, he would let them go. But at this time, Wang Ren still didn't know that he was going to be in big trouble. He was still immersed in the pleasure of revenge. Sister Zhongyu, what did Wang Ren say to you just now? Qin Guang walked forward in big strides as he turned around and asked Zhongyu. Zhou Xian, who was next to him, was desperately pulling him. Qin Guang. Don't go. Can you listen to me for once? The last thing is over. At worst, I won't borrow the equipment from the chemical engineering department. Don't be impulsive. Zhongyu was also pulling Qin Guang on the other side. At this time, the tears on her face had already dried up. Qin Guang, calm down. I really didn't suffer any losses. It's just that some of Wang's words were too harsh. I suddenly lost control of my emotions. Hua Ling, who was a bit bigger, was pulling the back of Qin Guang's collar. She really didn't let go of any blind spots. Luo Jin looked at Qin Guang from the side. He was also hesitating whether to pull him or not. In his heart he was looking forward to Qin Guang causing trouble in the School of Chemical Engineering and getting expelled. At the same time he felt that his performance in the School of Chemical Engineering was too cowardly. If he pulled Qin Guang over now, wouldn't that make him seem unmanly? About 2 minutes ago, Zhongyu didn't say anything more. She only told everyone that the director of the chemical engineering faculty was Wang Ren. Then Qin Guang exploded and silently walked out of the laboratory. Zhou Xian had seen him explode. God knows what kind of trouble he would cause if he left. Zhongyu saw that the situation was not good and hurriedly tried to persuade him. The moment she spoke, the face of Qin Guang, who had always been kind in the laboratory, suddenly became gloomy and ugly. Qin Guang was pulled by the 3 girls and couldn't move. He had no choice but to stop and look back at Zhou Xian. Teacher Zhou, did you forget what Wang wanted to do to you? After that, without waiting for Zhou Xian to speak, Qin Guang turned to look at Zhongyu. Sister Zhongyu, tell me the truth. Was it really just his words that were too harsh? What did he say? Qin Guang's eyes were so burning that Zhongyu subconsciously let go of his hand. She didn't dare to look at him directly. She turned her head away and thought of the grievances just now. She wanted to find someone to talk to, but she felt that something was wrong. Qin Guang said again, "Speak. You must speak today." He said that I looked pretty good and asked if I was interested in paying him 20,000 a month to be his mistress. I didn't agree, so he reached out to touch my face. I dodged and ran away. Finally, Zhou told the truth. I knew it. He can't change his bad habits. Qin Guang suddenly became angry. He pointed at Luo Jin and scolded, "Luo Jin, are you a man? Your classmate was humiliated like this and you just stood there and watched?" Luo Jin blushed and wanted to argue. He thought to himself, what does this have to do with me? Zhou didn't treat me well before, so why should I stand up for her? Moreover, that was Wang Ren. No, it's not Luo Jin's fault. At that time Wang Ren didn't let him into the office. I went in alone. Zhou defended Luo Jin. Without giving Luo Jin a chance to speak, Qin Guang said angrily, "When you saw that bastard Wang Ren, you should know what kind of person he is. Borrowing equipment is such an open and above-board thing. Why did he let you, a girl, stay in his office? Moreover, you ran out of Wang Ren's office crying, but he didn't even dare to fart. What kind of joke is this?" Chapter 373. Luo Jin was extremely embarrassed by Qin Guang's words. A man needed face and a tree needed its bark. Being lectured like this by an undergraduate student in his eyes, he felt embarrassed. "Qin Guang, don't just stand there and talk. Who didn't know that Wang Ren had a powerful background? What can I do even if I rush in and question him? If things really got out of hand, what if Teacher Zhou couldn't borrow the lab equipment? You'll bear the consequences of delaying the progress of the experiment? Can you? How capable? Don't pretend to be angry here. What's the point of being angry at me? I don't believe you can do anything to Wang Ren." Qin Guang suddenly laughed. "You're saying that I'm pretending to be angry? Fine, come, I'll show you what a man is." Zhou Jingxi panicked and suddenly hugged Qin Guang from behind. Almost half of her body was pressed against Qin Guang's back. She turned her head and shouted at Luo Jin, "Luo Jin, what nonsense are you talking about? Why are you provoking him at this time?" Luo Jin didn't know how powerful Qin Guang was, but Zhou Jingxi knew. Don't be fooled by his usual jovial demeanor. Once he got serious, he didn't care about anything. When Wang Ren was still the head of the discipline department in the Jianhuan school and was now in charge of Qin Guang, he dared to go against others and even almost beat them up. It was only when Wang Ren was chased out of the school that things came to an end. Now that something like this had happened, Zhou Jingxi felt that things were really getting out of hand. How could she let him go? Qin Guang tried to take 2 steps, but he really couldn't move. He didn't dare to use force to break free from Zhou Jingxi, so he could only stop and sigh. "Teacher Zhou, do you really think I've lost my mind from anger?" Zhou Jingxi retorted, "Isn't it?" Qin Guang shook his head. "No. Actually, I'm very clear-headed now. Really, really clear-headed." "Then why are you still like this?" Zhou asked again. Qin Guang sighed. "Fine, I'll tell you why I'm so angry. On a larger scale, look at where we are. This is Gokyo University. It was 211,985. It was the best university in the southwest region. It was the yearning of countless students in the Dechuan province. Wang Ren was merely an ignorant and incompetent piece of trash. What right did he have to wield authority here? What he did in the past at the Jianhuan Academy was fine. I thought that if I chased him away, it would be retribution for his evil deeds, and I thought that he would regret it. But look at how the people in the school fooled us. He is a completely uncultured person, but he controls the experimental equipment of the School of Chemical Engineering, which is worth hundreds of millions. He is like a ruffian on the street becoming the dean of the Imperial College. We followed the normal procedure to borrow a piece of idle equipment, but Sister Zhou had to face such difficulties. In the past, he ruined the atmosphere of our Jianhuan Academy. Now he wants to ruin the academic atmosphere of another academy. Before I came to the laboratory, I might not have felt anything. But now, I really feel that a serious scholar should not be under the jurisdiction of a scumbag like him. On a smaller scale back then, Dean Tong vowed in front of us that he would expel Wang Ren. In the end, not only did he not get the hell out, but he even got promoted. Wang Ren was fired. But he was promoted. If such a person continued to mingle in the school, Sister Zhou righteously rejected him today, but what about in the future? Or was there someone else who was in a hurry to tackle a key project at a critical moment? Give him another card? Think about it, do you really want people to lie on his bed for the sake of learning? That is the biggest joke in the world. On a smaller scale, Zhongyu is my friend. How dare he treat my friend like this? I can't stand it. Today I will settle old and new grudges with him. In this lousy school, if he exists, I will not exist. If I exist, I will not exist. No matter which school he is in, it is the same. Don't stop me. If I stop you now, I will find him alone tonight. The consequences will be worse. If I don't let him know, he will be in charge of the equipment. Tomorrow he will be in charge of the administration of the school. While Qin Guang was speaking, Zhou Xian had been hugging him from beginning to end. However, she gradually let go, knowing that she could no longer stop Qin Guang. At this moment, Luo Jin suddenly said, "Oh right, where's Hua Ling? Wasn't she here?" Zhou Xian asked. It seems that after I said that Wang Ren wanted to be my sugar daddy, she went back to the lab and came down from the other side of the building with something. Zhong Yu vaguely remembered. This is bad. Zhou Xian stomped her feet. She was trying her best to control Qin Guang, but she forgot about Hua Ling, the bad-tempered girl. She was also one of the main forces pulling Qin Guang back, but in the end she charged over herself. Let's go check it out. Qin Guang didn't have much contact with Hua Ling, but it was undeniable that the straightforward Hua Ling helped him a lot these days. A group of people ran all the way to the laboratory building of the School of Chemical Engineering. From afar they could see a large group of people surrounding the school building. Everyone thought that Hua Ling was in trouble, so they quickly rushed forward. Before they could take 2 steps, a loud shout came from the crowd in front of them. It was Hua Ling. She was full of energy. Obviously she didn't suffer much. Fortunately nothing happened to him. School of Chemical Engineering. Jinhuan School. The biggest stinky shit. Stinky shit. Wang Ren jumped ship. Wang Ren, you son of a bitch. Eating, drinking, whoring and gambling. He ran away with the mess he left behind. You want to molest a girl just to borrow equipment, and now you come to the School of Chemical Engineering. Wang Ren, you son of a bitch. Hua Ling's loud voice resounded through the sky. Obviously she had been shouting for a while. Otherwise she wouldn't be surrounded by so many people. Qin Guang was shocked. He really didn't know that senior sister Hua had this kind of talent. Unfortunately, he didn't have enough time to completely adapt the 350 million yuan from Jiangnan Tannery. What a pity. Who's this girl? Why is she so arrogant? Listening to her accent, she seems to be from the northeast. Oh my god, she scolded Wang Ren like that. Something bad happens, I have to go and help her. Don't get involved in this. What if you offend Wang Ren? Aren't you afraid of being expelled? What's there to be afraid of? Who doesn't know what that bastard is? You don't know, a few days ago I borrowed a pH meter and he asked me for 2,000 yuan. I don't want to study this stupid master's degree anymore. Obviously, even if Wang Ren only came to the School of Chemical Engineering for 2 months, he had already made a big name for himself. As the saying goes, gold will shine wherever it goes. Excuse me, please excuse me. There were a lot of people in front of him, so Qin Guang had to keep pushing his way forward. At this time there was a loud noise coming from the front. Which school are you from? Stop right there. Give me the loudspeaker. Wang Ren finally went downstairs. Let go. Hua Ling's shout came from the front. It seemed like Wang Ren was trying to grab the loudspeaker. The students who were still blocking in front of Qin Guang suddenly became noisy. They're fighting. They're fighting. Chapter 374. Qin Guang's heart tightened. Although Hua Ling was bigger than the average girl, Wang Ren was also fat and strong. If they really fought, Hua Ling would definitely be at a disadvantage. He hurriedly squeezed to the front, not caring if the people behind him could keep up. Another crisp sound came from the front. Maybe the loudspeaker was smashed on the ground. You bitch. How dare you scratch my face? I'm trying to catch you, shameless. Not only did you kill Xiao Lu, you also want to harm others. I don't even know who this Xiao Lu is. Get out of here. Get out. Wang Ren's voice was getting more and more out of control. But this was Hua Ling's scream. They really started fighting. When Qin Guang heard the 2 words Xiao Lu, he suddenly understood. Although this northeastern senior Hua Ling had a forthright personality, she shouldn't have lost control like this. But if she knew Ding Lu, then it wouldn't be strange. So after hearing that Wang Ren tried to keep Zhongyu as a mistress, maybe the string in her brain snapped, and she did such an impulsive thing. The Xiaolu she was talking about was Ding Lu. She was the girl who chose to commit suicide after leaving the school for various reasons. When Qin Guang was about to rush out of the crowd, Hua Ling was already fighting with Wang Ren. Many students and teachers were trying to pull the two to the side. But Wang Ren was grabbing Hua Ling's hair. Hua Ling was also fiercely pulling Wang Ren's collar. Her other hand was desperately pulling his face like crazy. Finally, the two were pulled apart. Wang Ren, you will die a horrible death. You will go to hell sooner or later. Hua Ling actually cried. She did not expect that she would lose control of her emotions after coming here. Originally, she only planned to scold Wang Ren, but after seeing him in person, the things in her mind suddenly floated to the surface and she lost control. Wang Ren wiped the blood off his face and fiercely grinned. Go to hell? Before I go to hell, you have to get out of this school. Beating and insulting the school leaders in public, you will be expelled. So be it. I don't want to go to this broken school anymore. Hua Ling shouted. Wang Ren coldly stared at her again. You think it's as simple as not studying? What you did today, I will record it in your file. No matter where you go to work in the future, this file will follow you for life. With Wang Ren's current position, of course, he did not have the authority to do so. However, if he could get his uncle, the vice principal, to speak to the administrative leaders of the school, he could really do it. Hua Ling's face turned pale as she realized the severity of the situation. Seeing that Hua Ling was scared, Wang Ren, who felt like he had lost all face, finally regained it. He became proud. That's why you people from Construction Ring are like this. You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. What right do you have to find trouble with me? Regret it for the rest of your life. I, Wang Ren, am not afraid of anyone in this school. The more he talked, the more proud he became. Although today's situation was embarrassing, it didn't matter. He could take this opportunity to establish his prestige in the chemical engineering department, and also let others know that he was a tough guy and in the future they would come to pay their respects to him. Damn it. Too arrogant. I'll beat him to death. Some of the angered students couldn't help but want to rush forward. But the commerce students tried to stop them. Everyone knew that they couldn't afford to offend this person. The movement of the students in front finally gave Qin Guang enough space. He suddenly moved to the front, stood in front of Wang Ren and coldly looked at him. Really? You've never been afraid of anyone? Wang Ren's whole body quivered. Looking at Qin Guang standing in front of him, he blinked his eyes, thinking that he was seeing things. Why is this devil incarnate here? He had seen the surveillance video of Qin Guang beating up Pan Jiang in the Zhou Xian. If he was a treacherous person, then this Qin Guang was a violent person, and a violent person with Wu Shan as his backing. That day in the Jianhuan school, after he found out Wu Shan's identity, he was also scared. Fortunately, his uncle was not a small character, so he was able to hold on. Being stared at by Qin Guang like he wanted to eat someone, Wang Ren subconsciously took a step back. Although he absolutely didn't want to admit that he was afraid of Qin Guang, his subconscious reaction sold out his thoughts. Qin Guang bent down and looked at Hua Ling, whose hair was messy and face was covered with dirt. Senior Hua Ling, you can go outside and rest. There's nothing for you to do here. What do you mean there's nothing for you to do here? After Qin Guang said this, both Wang Ren and Hua Ling were at a loss. After so many years of administrative work, Wang Ren had some ability to read people's expressions. He suddenly realized that this kid was going to be ruthless. So he asked Hua Ling to go away first so that this girl could get away. Thinking of this, he almost wanted to run, but when he turned around he found that his back was crowded with people and there was no way to escape. Even though the people surrounding him were not really trying to block him, they had unconsciously cut off his escape route. At this time Zhou Jingxi and the others finally squeezed in. Qin Guang pushed Hua Ling into Zhou Jingxi's arms. Teacher Zhou, you guys leave first. Zhou Jingxi, Hua Ling, Zhongyu and the others shook their heads violently. I'm telling you to leave this place. Listen to me. Qin Guang shouted. Let's go back, we can talk about this later, okay? Zhou Jingxi still wanted to persuade him. Qin Guang grinned. Are you trying to kill Wang Ren? Ah. Zhongyu, who was next to him, was stunned. However, Zhou Jingxi understood what he meant. He was clearly saying that if she didn't vent her anger today, someone would really die later. Seeing that she understood and began to retreat with the others, Qin Guang no longer cared about them, but turned around and walked forward. Wang Ren was trying his best to push through the crowd on both sides, trying to run forward. In fact, when Qin Guang first came here today, he did not really intend to make a move. He knew that Wang Ren was afraid of him. As long as he was here, he could borrow the lab equipment with just a word. Based on that bastard's bullying personality, he would only worship him like a Buddha statue. However, when he saw this person, saw the unkempt Hua Ling, saw the mention of Ding Lu's death, and saw the arrogant look on his face, Qin Guang suddenly changed his mind. He knew what it meant to throw a punch, but he could not bear it. Wang Ren, a brainless, uncultured, filthy, domineering and dirty person, was able to act like a tyrant in the Wujing University for so many years. Even though all the students and even many teachers knew from the bottom of their hearts that he was a rotten person, he still stood tall and did not fall. Even though he was expelled from the Building Loop Academy because of Chu Li's incident, he still managed to get a job in the School of Chemical Engineering. This showed that the person behind him was actually not afraid of Wu Xian. He just wanted to give everyone face and let the matter rest. For so many years, too many people wanted him to leave this school, but no one was able to put it into practice. It was not hard to imagine how strong his backer was. Gokyo University was second to none in the southwest of China. The person who could let Wang Ren cover the sky with one hand in this school would not have a low status. This school's principal had the administrative rank of a deputy minister, and even the deputy was at the level of a prefectural office, the same level as Wu Xian. The school was also a place to spread branches and leaves. The person hiding behind Wang Ren's back must have a great influence in politics, business and education. In fact, after Wang Ren was expelled, Qin Guang really wanted to get rid of this scum, but at that time he and Wu Tong both knew that this kind of person would not be satisfied just by scolding him or beating him up. He must be punished by the law. So Qin Guang and Wu Tong together decided to slowly collect evidence. It was just that both of them had their own things to do, so it dragged on until today when he once again appeared in front of Qin Guang. Wu Tong and Qin Guang had said many times that fists and kicks were not the real way to solve problems. But at this moment, Qin Guang couldn't control the evil in his heart when he looked at Su Tao's silhouette. He wanted to smash his fist against Su Tao's head, causing his brains to splatter. So he swung his fist in public under the shocked gazes of hundreds of onlookers. Without hesitation he threw a punch. This simple punch carried the determination in Qin Guang's heart. Really, if worst came to worst, he would be expelled. If he did not teach this bastard a lesson, Qin Guang really felt that there was no point in continuing to read this book. Now that the law could not punish him, then he would let his fist punish him first. Wang Ren, who was running forward, suddenly felt a hard hit on the back of his head and his mind went black. That fellow Qin Guang really made a move. Wang Ren screamed in his heart and tried to stagger forward again, but the back of his shirt was suddenly grabbed. "Why are you running?" Qin Guang said coldly behind him. "If you have the guts to do it, then you have the guts to stand here and take it." Chapter 375. Qin Guang, don't mess around. Didn't you want to borrow the equipment? I'll arrange it for you. Wang Ren shouted with a pale face. However, Qin Guang paid no attention to Su Tao and pulled Su Tao's face over. "That matter is not important to me now," Qin Guang said expressionlessly and punched Wang Ren's face again. Wang Ren fell on his back. Blood or teeth stained with blood flew out of his mouth as he swung his head back. Qin Guang was really holding back. He didn't know what would happen if he fully exerted the power of the Kirin arm. There were too many people here and it started with Hua Ling. If he killed him here it would be very troublesome, unimaginably troublesome, so he couldn't do that for now. But he could collect some interest. Then Qin Guang pounced on him again and punched the other side of Wang Ren's face. His fist scraped his nose, and there was a faint sound of bones breaking. The bridge of his nose was broken. After 3 punches, Wang Ren was completely unconscious on the ground. Blood came out of his mouth and nose. The place where Qin Guang's fist hit cracked open, revealing the flesh inside. At first, when Hua Ling and Wang Ren were fighting, there were students and teachers who came to separate them. But at this moment there were hundreds of people surrounding them. They didn't even have time to react, or it could be said that they were scared by Qin Guang's action. Although Qin Guang's actions were something that many students had fantasized about, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts when they saw this scum being beaten up before them one day. Gradually, some of the students who were watching the fun began to retreat. It was a big deal and it was better to protect themselves. Even some of the teachers who rushed over from the laboratory after hearing the news quietly retreated to the back. If Wang Ren made a fuss to his uncle and the overprotective vice principal found out that he had watched his scumbag nephew get beaten up into a state that was neither human nor ghost, who knew if he would secretly make things difficult for him? Not long after, the people on this side all ran away, but no one cared about Wang Ren, who was lying on the ground. It was obvious how unpopular he was. One of the more courageous young teachers walked at the back. When he saw that there was no one else, he said, "Student Chen Guang, you better not make a move. Otherwise, I advise you to turn yourself in. Don't you know who Wang Ren's uncle is? He's the vice principal of our school." After saying that, the man turned around and ran without looking back, afraid that he would get into trouble. Chen Guang curled his lips indifferently. Since he had already been beaten to this state, it didn't matter anymore. He kicked Wang Ren's stomach again. This guy, who had completely stopped moving, started to tremble on the spot as if he was a toad that had its skin peeled off. Those who were watching from afar felt that Wang Ren deserved what he got, but they still felt a little jealous. Tragic, truly tragic. Just a moment ago he was still unbridled and arrogant, and the next second he was beaten like a dead dog. It's just that this person is too weak. There's no sense of accomplishment in beating him up, and he's already lying on the ground after 2 or 3 hits. You should at least put up some resistance. Just as everyone left, Zhou Xian, who had chased Hua Ling, Zhongyu and the others back to the laboratory, came back alone. When she saw Wang Ren lying on the ground, it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. She was so scared that her face turned pale. She hurriedly went up to check on him and found that he was still breathing. Only then did she feel slightly relieved. "Hurry up and leave. Just say that I beat him up. I'm a school teacher. At most I'll just pay for it." Zhou Xian pushed Chen Guang fiercely, wanting him to leave. Chen Guang, who had been pretending to be cold and unfeeling, almost laughed at her. "Teacher Zhou, you're so funny. Look at the situation now. Who's playing with you? Don't think that you can settle such a big matter with money. It's very troublesome. It's not something that can be solved with money." Zhou Xian saw that he was unwilling to leave and panicked. "Then if I leave, you'll be the scapegoat. You're just a PhD student. What kind of position is a counselor? Can you handle it? I just heard people say that Uncle Wang seems to be some kind of vice principal, right? How can you handle it? Besides, so many people saw me hit him. Don't look at how the people nearby have all run away. Who knows how many people are watching from the windows over there and behind the door over there. How can they take the blame for a delicate girl like you?" Chen Guang, on the other hand, had thought things through clearly. Zhou Xian's face turned pale. She did not know what to do. "Listen to me. This matter has nothing to do with you. It's just a personal grudge between him and I. I don't like him, so I can beat him up if I want. It's that simple. It'll be troublesome if you guys get involved. Believe me, Wang Ren wouldn't dare to do anything to me. It has nothing to do with how much money I have. There's another reason. What you should do now is to do as I said just now and distance yourself from this matter. Besides, I'll just fire you and settle the matter with some compensation. It's nothing." Zhou Xian shook her head violently. "It'd be fine if it's just firing you. No, firing you definitely won't do. Don't tell me you'll have to retake the university entrance exam. Your life will be ruined just like that. You might end up in jail. I can't go to jail. I really can't. If you don't leave, I'll have no choice but to kick you out. You don't want those people hiding around to see me slap your butt, do you?" Seeing that he really could not get rid of her, Chen Guang decisively came up with this plan. Perhaps he was just trying to take advantage of her? "Don't. Please don't." Zhou Xian panicked. At this moment, police sirens suddenly sounded in the campus from afar. Zhou Xian said anxiously, "Someone called the police?" Chen Guang nodded. "I did. So what? There are so many people watching. I can't just run away, can I?" Not long after, a brand new Jetta police car stopped beside them. Wu Tong got out of the car. As soon as she got out of the car, she saw Chen Guang and Zhou Xian standing at the side. Wang Ren was lying on the ground. Wang Long, the old comrade who used to lead the new, followed behind her bitterly. Comrade Wu Tong was now the deputy chief of the Wenxing branch. Her promotion was really fast. Chen Guang's method of calling the police was also different. He did not call Jiao Jiao but Wu Tong's cell phone. She came very quickly. "You rascal, I thought you could hide from me forever. I've caught you this time, haven't I? Wu Tong said cheerfully as she got out of the car. Wang Long, who was beside her, said, Chief Wu, was there a victim? Wu Tong rolled her eyes. Oh, I didn't see him. Huh? Wang Long was dumbfounded. You didn't see such a big person? Of course, Wu Tong was lying. Don't be nervous. I feel that the atmosphere here is too heavy. I'm just trying to liven it up a little. What kind of victim is he? He was just beaten up. It's not a big deal. His name is Wang Ren. He's the person I asked you to collect information on a few days ago. You know what I mean. Wang Long suddenly understood. Oh, actually Wu Tong had always kept this matter in mind. About a week ago she had set Wang Ren as the first of her 3 moves as a new official. However, this matter should not have been the responsibility of the police station. It should have been the responsibility of the Anti-Corruption Discipline Inspection Department. However, since others did not care and a girl's life was involved, Wu Tong used her authority as the deputy chief and her identity as Wu Xian's daughter to take matters into her own hands. No one could say anything about it. Of course, all of this had been carried out in secret, which meant that she had done it in private. Although Wu Tong was impulsive, she was not stupid. She knew that it was best not to make a big deal out of this unless the day she revealed her trump card. When the time came and the conditions were right, she would use it all at once. What was done could not be undone. Naturally, Wang Ren would not be able to clean up the mess. Can you not drag out the ending so much? Wu Tong was unhappy. It makes it seem like I'm trying to play favoritism. How can that be? Chief Wu's eyes are like a torch. You hate evil as if it's your enemy. You plan for a rainy day. You are the model of the current police force. Comrade Wang Long said resolutely. Chapter 376. The cruel reality had forced Wang Long, an excellent police officer who was good at his job, to become a flatterer. She was a rookie, then a captain, and now a deputy chief. Comrade Wang Long's fate was tragic enough. How could the gap between people be so big? Of course, it was no wonder that Wu Xian tried his best to promote Wu Tong. The credit of killing 7 international criminals, including Sergio, was not something an ordinary police officer could achieve even in a decade. In addition, Wu Xian handled the situation well. He made it sound like Wu Tong was tricked by the police car and went into the factory. The young police officer risked his life to defend the country's sovereignty. He pretended to be weak, sneaked in alone, and killed all the criminals. In the internal documents, Wu Tong was described as a lone hero. With credit and background, it would be intolerable if Wu Tong did not get promoted. Wang Long was also joking. Putting today aside, Wu Tong's work was indeed upright and plain-spoken. She could endure hardship and was brave enough to charge and break through enemy lines. She finally came close. Qin Guang chuckled. Sis, I didn't hide from you. Aren't you busy, and so am I? Since I'm free today, I asked you to arrest me. Am I not giving you credit? Wu Tong spat at him. Save it. Do you think I don't know that you asked me to clean up your mess? You heartless little brother. Call me when you need me and treat me like air when you don't need me. Wang Long, who was next to Wu Tong, had goosebumps all over his body. Scary, really scary. Director Wu, who was now called the Iron Judge Wu in the police station, actually spoke in such a tone in front of his brother-in-law. I won't be silenced when I return to the station, right? Then Teacher Zhou, shall I take Qin Guang away? Wu Tong finally noticed Zhou Jingxi, who was standing next to her in a daze. Zhou Jingxi had seen Wu Tong last time and knew that she was the police officer in charge of Qin Guang and Pan Zhang's case. She guessed that Wu Tong had a good relationship with Qin Guang, but now it seemed that it was very unusual. Zhou Jingxi nodded blankly. Oh, okay. Wang Long, you take care of the aftermath. Send this dead man to the hospital. I'll take the suspect away first. Wu Tong said as she pulled Qin Guang towards the police car happily. She had only taken 2 steps when she suddenly remembered something. Oh right. You weren't crippled, right? Qin Guang nodded. I'm not crippled. I know what to do. That's good. It's not a big deal. I can handle it. She watched as Qin Guang and Wu Tong got into the police car side by side. It didn't look like they were arresting criminals at all. It was more like 2 acquaintances who had met by chance on the street and were chatting happily. They were going to talk about life somewhere. Wang Long was also in tears. Are you going to show favoritism in front of me? They didn't even put on a fake handcuff? They didn't even make an official article? Seeing that the police car had gone far away, Zhou Jingxi couldn't help but ask, Officer Wang, I'm Qin Guang's counselor Zhou Jingxi. Who is Qin Guang and Officer Wu? Sister. Wang Long subconsciously wanted to say brother-in-law, but he immediately felt that something was wrong. First of all, he was older than Wu Tong. Brother-in-law was too embarrassing. He should say brother-in-law. Secondly, this was also a joke in the police station. Wu Tong would never admit it. Of course, she had never denied it, but she couldn't say it in front of outsiders. So he waved his hand. Next, I'm such a genius. You should leave this place quickly. This matter is very complicated, more complicated than you think. I can't say anything yet, but Teacher Zhou, you must not get involved. Wang Long said as he called 120. Qin Guang had already slipped away, so there was no point in Zhou Jingxi staying there. Since the police were in charge of the scene, she also knew that she didn't have to get involved. She could only leave worriedly. In the car, Wu Tong said as she drove, I've found some things about Wang Ren, but it's only at the level of corruption. Frankly speaking, if Wang Ren was just an ordinary person, this would be enough to convict him, but now it's still not enough. I have to raise the case to the level of a criminal case before I can arrest him. You're a little impulsive today. Qin Guang sat in the front passenger seat. He felt that Wu Tong's words were vaguely familiar. It seemed that after he beat up Ma Lin, the president, not long ago, Lu Fei also said the same thing. I can't help it. I just happened to be at the right time and I couldn't control my hand. Wang Ren has an amazing uncle, I know that. He's the vice principal. His official position isn't as high as your father's, right? Wu Tong pinched his leg. Look at what you're saying. It's as if you can convict someone just because he's a higher official or a lower official. Well, the administrative ranks are really the same. The vice principal of Gokyo University is indeed at the level of a prefectural hall. A school's vice principal has that much power? He can cover the sky with one hand? Qin Guang asked curiously. I can't say that he can cover the sky with one hand, but in this school's territory, that executive vice principal really has the final say. Don't look down on people. Although that old man doesn't seem to have any real power outside, he has a wide range of friends. He has students all over the world. There are also many friends in Yanjing who can help him speak up. There are also many department leaders in Dechuan province who have real power under his tutelage. Or when they were studying under him, they owed him a favor. Even my father has to give him some face. Wu Tong pointed out the crux of the matter. Qin Guang curled his lips in disdain. What good can this kind of person teach? He's just a fly trying to gain personal gains. But in this world, isn't it easy for a fly trying to gain personal gains? Wu Tong seemed to be mocking herself, but also seemed to be talking about Wang Ren or perhaps Wang Ren's uncle. Qin Guang sat at the Wenqing police station for as long as a bag of melon seeds, because he really ate a bag of melon seeds while sitting in Wu Tong's office. There was no one else who could treat a criminal as well as him so well. That was why relationships were so important in this world. If it was someone else who injured someone and was brought to the police station, they would not be able to escape the most basic public security punishment. Of course, Wu Tong was not like this usually. Her title as the Iron Judge was not for nothing, but if she did not help Qin Guang, who else could she help? Most of the time she was just unfair. What's the big deal if I do something selfish once in a while? Wu Tong knew what kind of person Wang Ren was, and there was no obstacle in her heart. Before they left, Wu Tong also told Qin Guang not to pay too much attention to it. Although Wang Ren's uncle was formidable, Wu Shan wasn't a pushover either. The higher they were, the more they wouldn't want to cause a conflict. Perhaps there would be a process of wrangling between Wu Shan and Wang Ren's uncle. For example, your people beat up my nephew and you want to let it go? Then Wu Shan would make a fuss, saying that it was because your nephew wanted to keep someone else's girlfriend. Anyway, it was all made up. Believe it or not, that was my attitude. But in the end, the matter could not be blown up. Even if the vice principal's network expanded, he would not be able to reach that position for the rest of his life. Wu Shan was different. Everyone knew that he would come to the capital sooner or later. Since Wu Shan went to greet him, Wang Ren's plan was wasted. He deserved it for not being able to control his crotch and getting hot-headed whenever he saw Zhongyu. But Qin Guang and Wu Tong felt that it was not enough. This scumbag should not end up like this. According to Wu Tong, this person should go to jail to answer to the soul of the girl named Ding Lu. According to Qin Guang, this person should die. What Qin Guang said made Wu Tong's hair stand on end. My bottom line is to let him go to jail for 10 years. If he is like what the rumors say that he will be released for medical treatment after a few months, I will personally send him on his way. No one can stop me. Chapter 377. When she returned to school, she went straight to the laboratory, but it was empty. The experiment could not continue after such a big incident. Zhou Xian let Zhong Yu and the other two go about their own business. But in fact, everyone knew that perhaps today or perhaps tomorrow Wang Ren's protective uncle would do something. There were many rumors about Wang Ren and his uncle Su Lijing in the school. Everyone was well aware of it, but no one said anything. Those who knew a little about the inside story could not understand why the famous economist Mr. Su Lijing would be so protective of his nephew. Those who knew more about the inside story could vaguely guess that Wang Ren and Su Lijing were uncle and nephew, but that was because of the strict birth control in the early years. From the beginning, Su Lijing had pulled Wang Ren under his sister's name. In fact, Wang Ren was his biological son. Su Lijing was also a person. Back in the 70s and 80s, when he was still young, he gave up many temptations abroad and returned to China. He had a considerable status in the domestic economics field and had done some practical things in recent years. After getting involved in administrative management, he was considered to have taken one step at a time in the school. When he was just over 60, he sat firmly in the position of executive vice president of Gokyo University. He was also quite accomplished academically and was indeed a person who contributed. At the same time, there were internal rumors that he was also a member of the central think tank, but this could not be confirmed. It was only a rumor. But no one was perfect. Perhaps the only blemish in Su Lijing's life was Wang Ren. When Wang Ren was young, he lived with his sister in a small place. Su Lijing's sister was not good at disciplining this fake son, so Wang Ren was rebellious and fought from a young age. He didn't even finish junior high school before he dropped out and mingled in society. He was even sent to prison when Su Lijing went abroad. Originally, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Later, because Su Lijing returned to China, he contributed a lot and personally acted as a guarantor. It took another 2 years for Wang Ren to be released. Perhaps Su Lijing felt that he owed his nephew too much, so after he was released, he especially spoiled him. 10 years ago, he found an excuse to drag his nephew, who didn't even have a junior high school diploma, into the school. It could be considered as arranging an iron rice bowl for him. As Su Lijing's position and status rose higher and higher, Wang Ren also followed suit. He started as a school police officer and climbed up step by step. Gradually, under Su Lijing's shadow, he became a tyrant in the school and a rat's poop in a pot of soup. He couldn't afford to offend anyone. It was only last semester when Wang Ren ran into Wu Xian's gun because of the incident with Qin Guang that he suffered a slight setback. In the end, he just moved to another place. Wu Xian was well aware of this, but this was the result of his negotiation with Su Lijing. Wang Ren was Su Lijing's biological son, and Qin Guang and Wu Xian were not related at all. There was no need for the two of them to fall out because of the pestering of their juniors. Su Lijing being willing to give Wu Xian face was already very kind of him. It was only because of Wu Xian's amazing potential that Su Lijing was willing to give him face. However, potential did not represent strength. Su Lijing was giving in to Wu Xian, but Wu Xian could not make Su Lijing lower his head completely. Before you actually sat in those positions, no one knew what the next term would be like. Qin Guang found Zhou Xian at her home. When she entered the door, she seemed to have just finished a phone call with someone. Her face was pale like a frightened bunny. "Teacher Zhou, what's wrong?" Qin Guang strode in and felt that Zhou Xian's expression was not right. Zhou Xian shook her head. "No, nothing." Qin Guang sat on the sofa. "You really don't know how to lie at all." In the end, Zhou Xian could not hide it anymore. The person who had just called was her tutor, Xu Lirong. According to the school's leaders, they originally wanted to directly revoke her doctorate qualifications, but because Xu Lirong insisted on protecting her, the matter was temporarily put on hold. Although Xu Lirong's administrative status was not high, her status in the academic world was not much lower than Su Lijing's. The two sides wrangled again and finally reached a compromise. They removed Zhou Xian's position as the person in charge of the photocatalyst laboratory team, and removed her qualifications as a tutor that she had fought so hard to obtain. She was temporarily retained as a student, but was not allowed to enter the laboratory. Instead, they arranged for a random company outside and sent her to be a technical consultant for at least a year. She could no longer continue the photocatalyst research that she had been doing for several years. The school did not even need to find any special reasons. They just said that the company had a contract with the school and needed a doctorate student to go there for technical guidance. The laboratory equipment was the school's. If they said they could not use it, then they would not let you use it. Letting you be the laboratory leader was to train you, and they did not take a penny from you. Even if they removed you today, you would not be able to go to anyone to complain. Of course, Qin Guang knew how big a blow this matter was to Zhou Xian, but he did not expect the other party's counterattack to come so quickly and so fiercely. It's all my fault. I didn't think things through. Qin Guang had already tried his best to get Zhou Xian to distance herself from this matter, but she was still implicated. Even if it was just a gust of wind at the edge of the storm, it would still be a devastating blow to her research career. For a person who was obsessed with research, this was indeed painful. Zhou Xian wiped away her tears. It's not your fault. If I were in your shoes, I would have done the same. Qin Guang thought about it and really wanted to tell her, I'll build a laboratory for you. However, before he could say it, Liuli's voice rang out in his mind. Stop dreaming. I have my eyes on a big project and am in discussion with someone. With the money you have left, it's just enough. Don't even think about using a single cent. He was really unlucky. Why did this lady make a move at this time? The two of them sat there for a while before Zhou Xian seemed to suddenly react. I have to go see my teacher. Qin Guang asked. Plead for her? Zhou Xian said as she changed her shoes. No, my teacher must be very sad at this time. I'm the one who made things difficult for her. It was an hour later when she saw Xu Lirong. Old Lady Xu was now 70 years old. Her hair was white and she was wearing reading glasses as she sat in her study. She was also trembling with anger. On the way here, Zhou Xian had told Qin Guang that the old lady was getting on in years and was always worried that she wouldn't be able to do research for a few more years. Since more than 10 years ago, she had been wholeheartedly focused on photocatalysis, hoping to produce some results before she became too old to be sober. Her laboratory was currently the most advanced among the 5 photocatalysis groups. Now that it had suffered such a disaster, it would definitely be a huge blow to the old lady. She hoped that she could understand when she saw the old lady later. Zhou Xian apologized to the old lady one after another. Old Lady Xu wanted to scold her, but seeing her remorseful and regretful look, she couldn't bear to say anything. She just sighed. Sigh, that bastard Wang Ren came to our academy. This would have happened sooner or later. I've told Su Lijing many times, but it's useless. This can't be blamed on you. Who can be blamed for causing destruction in an academic place? It's all my fault. Teacher Xu, this is all my fault. Zhou Xian was still apologizing. Xu Lirong stretched her neck and looked at Qin Guang, who was standing behind her. You're the Qin Guang who hit someone, right? Qin Guang knew that he couldn't avoid it. He thought that he would definitely be scolded, so he shrunk his neck and took a step forward, standing in front of the old lady. It's me. Looking at the old lady's silver hair, her face full of age spots, and her trembling hands and feet, Qin Guang couldn't help but feel a burst of heartache. Chapter 378. When he entered the door, he carefully observed Professor Xu's large study room. The walls were full of bookshelves and the bookshelves were all full of journals. Thinking about the old woman's age, Qin Guang respected this scholar from the bottom of his heart. The more respect he had, the more ashamed he would be if he caused trouble for others. He even regretted that when he hit Wang Ren, he only thought that he was fearless, but he didn't consider that it would involve so many people, and it would affect the research that the old woman had invested her entire life into. If he had known it would be like this, he would have considered it more. Of course, the most unobtainable thing in this world was knowing it earlier. Unexpectedly, the old woman didn't scold him but instead laughed. Good hit. I've wanted to hit that grandson for a long time, but I'm too old to hit him. You don't know how angry those retired old guys from the School of Chemical Engineering were. Last month, old Jiang came out of Su Lijing's office for less than 3 days and he died from anger. Qin Guang and Zhou Xian were shocked. So there was such a thing. The School of Chemical Engineering that accepted Wang Ren was obviously not a monolithic block. There were still some people who understood, but unfortunately those people were retired. They tried to resist but failed, and they angered an old professor to death. Little Zhou, you are a talent. This time it is a setback for you, but it is not all bad. You don't have to worry about showing your face at the company. I've contacted an old classmate overseas. With your current level, you can also enter his son's laboratory in California. My old classmate's son is also quite outstanding. He's a foreign academic leader before he's even 50 years old. He has real skills. You should take advantage of these 2 years to further your studies. Foreign countries are ahead of us in the field of photocatalysts. You should go there and learn. After Professor Xu calmed down, she said so. It turned out that she had already found a way out for Zhou Jingxi. It's a pity that you didn't pass the exam normally. You can't get a degree there and you still have to come back to get your doctorate. But it doesn't matter. Even if I'm not here at that time, I've already talked to little Han. He can take over my class and finish your doctorate. Professor Xu said with waning interest. Zhou Jingxi immediately burst into tears. Old Madame Xu's words were spoken lightly, but there was a hint of disheartened coldness in her words. The old woman was really hurt. Silly child, don't cry, this setback is nothing. I'm old. If I were young, I wouldn't care about Su Lijing or Wang Ren. I would protect you even if I had to die. But now I really couldn't hold on any longer. This also reminded me that it was time to consider letting go. It's just a little regretful that before I die I couldn't really come up with anything. After I die, people will definitely criticize me. Old Lady Xu wasted a lot of the country's money, but she didn't even get any results. Time waits for no one. As Old Lady Xu spoke, her voice started to choke. But it's not your fault, little Zhou. It's really not your fault. You've already done very well. It's just that you were born 10 years too late. If you and I had fought together 10 years earlier, we would have produced something by now. But it doesn't matter. The happiest thing is that I can take you with me for a period of time in these few years. When you return to China, it doesn't matter if you don't come back. In any case, you have to go further than me. Zhou Jingxi burst into tears. The two women, one old and one young, hugged each other and cried bitterly in the study. Perhaps Wang Ren's matter was just the fuse. What really made old Xu sad was that she felt old. For a person who had been studying for his entire life, the saddest thing was not losing to knowledge but to time. He clearly knew that if he persisted on this path he would get results sooner or later, but he couldn't live to see that day. How sad it was. Qin Guang could also see that the old woman was really overworked and overworked her brain. She looked like she was in her 70s, but she looked like she was in her 90s. In the time it took to say a few more words, her breathing had become rapid. Perhaps she really didn't have many years left. The room was filled with a sorrowful atmosphere. Qin Guang silently turned his face away. He also felt his eyes moisten. After a long time the two of them finally calmed down. Zhou Jingxi's panic from having to leave the laboratory gradually dissipated. Old Xu turned her gaze to Qin Guang again. Young man, don't blame yourself. Actually, we all hope that someone will really stand up and kick that bastard surnamed Wang out of the school. If this time, because of you, Su Lijing can understand that he should send Wang Ren somewhere else and not let him cause trouble in the school, then you'll really have done a great service. The school is full of honest people who study, and all of them have been trampled on by Wang Ren. Every day there's someone shitting on your head. How can you study? Evil people should be tortured by evil people. When old Xu said this, Qin Guang also laughed. Ancestor grandmother really knows how to ease people's minds. I'm already regretting that I didn't hit him hard enough. Don't worry, I, Qin Guang, swear here today that even if I'm expelled, later if that surnamed Wang still hangs around in the school, I'll specially beat him up. I'll beat him up until he doesn't dare to appear within 10 miles of the school. Old Xu's eyes lit up. Aren't you afraid that Su Lijing will find trouble with you? Qin Guang curled his lips. I'm not afraid. Isn't he just a vice principal? Can he eat me up? Young man, do you have other ideas? Old Xu was a learned person for decades. Perhaps she didn't know much about business, but she had a keen eye for people. She could see through Qin Guang's other plans at a glance. Qin Guang didn't hide it from her. Yes, if we can send him to jail, that would be even better. Old Xu clapped her hands excitedly. Although I'm not very optimistic about you, I support you. When you go back, look for little Han. He's the vice principal of your school. He has some things that might be helpful to you, but you have to do it discreetly. Although little Han is also involved in administration, he's also a learned person. Don't drag him into this. Qin Guang nodded. I understand. When the two left Old Shu's house, their moods were much better. Zhou Jingxi was still a little choked up. She was just sad about Old Shu's old age. But humans were like this. Birth, old age, sickness, and death were the natural cycle of reincarnation. Sickness could be cured, but aging was unstoppable. Teacher has placed all her hopes on me. Zhou Jingxi leaned on the E400L passenger seat inside. So, Teacher Zhou, you have to pull yourself together. It's about learning. It doesn't matter where you do it. Studying abroad isn't bad either. Qin Guang, on the other hand, was delighted. Zhou Jingxi wanted to say something but stopped. Qin Guang guessed what she was thinking. Well, it doesn't matter if you admit it or not. Anyway, you're my little mistress now. I know this kind of private study that isn't funded by the government must be very expensive, but don't worry, I can still handle this small amount of money. Zhou Jingxi shook her head fiercely. How can I let you pay for this? No way. That's how you rejected me when I bought you a car. Give up struggling. After the first time, you won't be able to resist the second and third time. Otherwise, how are you going to study abroad? I heard that living expenses in America cost thousands of dollars a month. When you have a foothold abroad, the laboratory will have to pay you, right? When the time comes, if you really can't get over it, then you can pay me back. Zhou Jingxi's face froze. She couldn't refute. At this moment, the two of them still didn't know that Su Lixing's counterattack was not over. Vice Principal Su had indeed reached a compromise with Wu Shan, but this compromise was only limited to Qin Guang. Official Su's anger couldn't burn Qin Guang, but it had to be vented. The more he compromised with Qin Guang, the more it would burn with others. Zhou Jingxi had Old Shu to protect her, so she could barely stay in school. The ones who were really hurt were Hua Ling, Ding Lu's former roommate, Zhong Yu, and even Luo Jin. Chapter 379. By the time the two saw Hua Ling at the bottom of the administration building, the northeastern girl had already calmed down. While Zhou Jingxi, Qin Guang, and Mrs. Xu were chatting, Hua Ling was met by the leaders of Gokyo University's graduate program. Her punishment was simple and straightforward. She was dismissed. Wang Ren was still lying in the hospital, and it was unknown if he had woken up. However, the graduate program's quick response was definitely Su Lixing's decision. Hua Ling looked at the two of them and was unusually calm. She said cheerfully, Actually, I should have gone back to my hometown when I graduated last year. It doesn't matter now. I feel like I'm not as talented as Teacher Zhou when it comes to academics. I might as well go back to my hometown and take the civil service exam. Or maybe I could get a job at a monitoring station. It could be said that she was forcing herself to smile or being open-minded, but after experiencing this incident, Hua Ling was exceptionally calm. Zhou Jingxi wanted to persuade her and express her indignation, but when she saw the punishment notice in Hua Ling's hand, she didn't know what to say. Qin Guang's brows were tightly furrowed. Su Lixing's counterattack had come too quickly and too fiercely. He didn't ask about right or wrong, didn't care about the reason, and didn't care about how it happened. He just used the excuse of beating up and provoking the school's leaders to expel Hua Ling. Everyone knew that the real culprit was Qin Guang, but they could still persuade Hua Ling to leave. Su Lixing had the right to do so, and he found a barely passable reason. It was hard to believe that this was indeed a place for academics. After a while, Zhong Yu also walked out of the administrative building. She was also holding a piece of paper in her hand. She looked like she was in a dilemma. Before the gloomy Qin Guang could ask anything, Zhong Yu smiled and said, It doesn't matter if I get a major demerit or probation. But Qin Guang couldn't help cursing as he continued. Is that Su Lixing a madman? Is he going to wipe out the entire project team? I don't know if he's going to wipe them out, but Hua Ling, Qin Guang, why am I so unlucky to meet the two of you? At this time, Luo Jin also walked down from the administrative building. Obviously, he was not spared. Seeing that everyone had turned to look at him, Luo Jin's handsome face darkened. He stared at Qin Guang and said, Are you satisfied now? Happy now? Would he be satisfied just because he had a big fist? Look at us now. Teacher Zhou has been sent out, Hua Ling has been expelled, Zhong Yu has been put on probation, and I've been given demerits. It's all your fault. If Qin Guang had really been fired, he might have been able to refute Luo Jin. However, the current situation was that nothing had happened to Chen Guang. It was the others who were unlucky. This made Chen Guang really speechless. Unexpectedly, Zhou Jingxi, Hua Ling, and Zhong Yu shouted in unison, "Shut up." Then the three of them said in a different order, "I don't care." As soon as they finished speaking, the three of them realized that the other two had the same idea as them. They couldn't help but laugh out loud. Luo Jin stood there dumbfounded. He really couldn't understand why Chen Guang had been here for a few days, but he had become the outsider of the research team. Such a big thing happened and you guys don't blame Chen Guang at all? He looked at Zhou Jingxi with some pain. No matter what, the research team was gone. He really couldn't find a reason to continue staying by Zhou Jingxi's side. He still had a lot of ways to retreat. He didn't have the determination or courage to follow Zhou Jingxi to the company to waste time. He felt that he was a talented researcher. Although he really liked Zhou Jingxi, he couldn't throw his life away. One day when he became a big shot in academia, he could help her. She would definitely be touched, right? Teacher Zhou. Luo Jin still wanted to say something. Zhou Jingxi waved her hand disinterestedly. She could see that Chen Guang's expression was a little sad. For the first time she felt annoyed with Luo Jin, this useful research dog. Luo Jin go. A demerit isn't a punishment that can't be removed. You don't have to care too much about it. Don't call me teacher. I won't bring the lab anymore. After she finished speaking, she pulled Chen Guang away. Hua Ling and Zhong Yu followed, leaving Luo Jin alone. Luo Jin was at a loss. He just wanted to criticize Chen Guang. He thought that the others would share the same hatred as him. He didn't expect to be pushed out of the small group. Did I do something wrong? Wasn't it Chen Guang's impulsiveness that caused us all to be unlucky? It was really difficult for a person with an EQ like him to understand this problem. It was hard to say for others, but Hua Ling's expulsion really couldn't be blamed on Chen Guang. She was the first person to rush over. Hua Ling's fate was sealed even without Chen Guang beating up Wang Ren. On the other hand, Chen Guang felt indignant in his heart. He was even willing to be fired. Perhaps he wouldn't feel so unhappy in his heart. He was the one who made a move, but someone else had to bear the consequences. On the contrary, it was worse than a knife cutting into his body. I'm the one who has nothing to fear. You can't hurt me, but you hurt others? The punishment had been decided. Unless Su Lijing changed his mind, no one could change the result. Zhou Jingxi and Zhong Yu were comforting Hua Ling in the hot pot restaurant. Hua Ling casually said that it wasn't a big deal. In fact, she had long wanted to go back and take the civil servant exam. Chen Guang, on the other hand, made a call to Wu Shan from outside the restaurant. Although Chen Guang did not meet with Wu Shan many times, he had a pretty good impression of this uncle of his. Hence, Chen Guang intended to plead with Wu Shan. After all, he had saved Wu Tong's life, so Wu Shan should give him face and negotiate with Su Lijing, right? On the other end of the line, Wu Shan seemed a little tired. He didn't even need Chen Guang to say it out loud. He already knew why Chen Guang was calling. Chen Guang, you're calling to ask about Su Lijing, aren't you? Don't worry, I've talked to him and he won't pursue the matter. I have to say you're really ruthless, beating up that cheap nephew of his. I'm afraid he won't be able to leave the hospital for at least half a month. I heard that his nose is comminuted. He called Chen Guang not little Chen to show that they were close. Chen Guang nodded and said, "Thank you, Uncle Wu." Wu Shan adjusted his state of mind and laughed heartily. "There's no need to thank me. I owe you the life of my daughter, so it's what I should do." Hearing Wu Shan's hearty voice, the haze in Chen Guang's heart dissipated a little. He swallowed his saliva and said tentatively, "Uncle Wu, there are still some things that happened. I wasn't affected, but my classmates, my teacher." Wu Shan was silent for a while, obviously trying to organize his words. If someone like him had to organize his words, the matter was indeed not as simple as it seemed. After a long time, Wu Shan's voice came again. "I understand what you mean." As soon as he said this, Chen Guang's heart skipped a beat. What followed next was probably a "but," right? "But I really tried my best in this matter. I can indeed negotiate with Su Lijing and I can get him to make appropriate concessions, but there's a limit to the concessions. Do you understand what I mean?" As expected, the hope in Chen Guang's heart gradually dimmed. Chapter 380. On the other side, Wu Shan's straightforwardness disappeared as he paused briefly before he continued. Wang Ren is Su Lijing's son and Qin Guang is Wu Tong's benefactor. Our relationship is equal, and Wang Ren and Su Lijing's relationship is also equal. Su Lijing and I are also equal, but the others aren't. So it won't be easy for us to continue discussing this matter. Let's end this matter here. Although Su Lijing is protective of his children, he's still my elder. He's also a bit of a scholar and won't go too far. But you can't block all the ways he can vent his anger, right? There are many paths in life. You should talk to your teacher and classmates and resolve the conflict. Okay, sorry to bother you. Since Wu Xian had already spoken, Qin Guang silently hung up the phone. He couldn't help. Qin Guang knew very well that Wu Xian really couldn't help. Or maybe he didn't know. Actually, that wasn't the case. When he talked to Wu Tong, he mentioned Teacher Zhou and the others. Would Wu Tong not mention it to Wu Xian? Of course not. So Wu Xian didn't forget but chose to ignore. Although Su Lijing didn't have any real power, he had a high status. Although his position was at the top, his connections were everywhere. Wu Xian was a young politician. Although he had a bright future, he didn't have enough experience. In addition, Wu Xian had his own difficulties when negotiating with Su Lijing. Su Lijing said that he was his nephew, but everyone knew that it was his son. Wu Xian wanted to speak up for Qin Guang, but because he had to avoid the broken world, he couldn't tell him how important Qin Guang was to him. So he could only say that he was Wu Tong's friend. The relationship between a son and a daughter wasn't equal, and Wu Xian only said those words to make Qin Guang feel better. In both Wu Xian's and Su Lijing's eyes, Su Lijing was open-minded and magnanimous. He made appropriate concessions and even did Wu Xian a big favor. Qin Guang understood that if he asked Wu Xian to protect Xianxia and the others, it would be a slap in Su Lijing's face. This favor was too big and he might not be able to sell it. However, the matters of the world were not things that could be resolved just because one could understand reason. In Qin Guang's opinion, if he was in Wu Xian's shoes, he would definitely protect everyone without any hesitation. The reason was simple. Wang Ren deserved what he got, and his retribution was far from enough. How could Su Lijing be called a scholar? In order to protect his child, he had cut off Xianxia's career as a researcher, expelled Hua Ling, put Zhongyu on probation and recorded a demerit on Luo Jin. All of this was revenge. There was nothing scholarly about him. Wasn't it said how many contributions one had made, how many books one had written, and how great one's reputation was? If one's conduct was already crooked, how could one talk about learning? Therefore, by protecting Xianxia and the others, he was protecting justice, and justice, not a favor. Of course, Qin Guang knew that this was just his opinion. Wu Tong had already said that Wu Xian was a politician, and a politician had to keep climbing up the ranks. He wouldn't easily make enemies, and every decision he made represented an exchange of benefits. Perhaps becoming enemies with Su Lijing, the elder he spoke of, might even affect his career as a politician. Therefore, he felt that he had done his best to protect himself. Su Lijing had already given in twice, so he couldn't be too aggressive anymore. Qin Guang clenched his phone tightly and sighed in his heart. As expected, I can't be a politician. But should I just accept this loss? Seeing that the three women had already started clinking glasses one after another, Qin Guang could see the disappointment hidden under the surface. Qin Guang clenched his fists tighter and tighter. I won't accept this. Since I can't count on Wu Xian, I have to use my own methods to solve the problem. In the past, he didn't really understand Wu Tong's attitude towards Wu Xian, and he always felt that it was wrong for her to treat her father like that. Now Qin Guang could more or less understand it. Having a politician as a family member was sometimes quite painful. But in his heart, Qin Guang didn't blame Wu Xian. As a politician, he had already done his best. At the end of the day, Qin Guang was still too weak, so he could only seek help from others when he encountered this kind of situation. For example, Ma Xinlin, who Zhu Xian ran into when he was borrowing a loan, was also the same. If Lu Fei and the others hadn't come at the right time, Qin Guang would have been in endless trouble after he flipped out. If he had Wu Xian's status today, he wouldn't need to seek help from others. He would be able to stand on the opposite side of Su Lijing, confront him head-on and negotiate with him. Relying on Wu Xian's protection, there was a layer of relationship between them. No matter how beautiful Wu Xian's words were, it was ultimately not his own business. Su Lijing would only give Wu Xian some face by letting one person go and killing the other four. If it was his own business, he could justifiably use 120% of his strength. Today's situation wouldn't be like this, and the other party would also think twice. With a layer of separation, if he could only use 70% of his strength, he could only protect himself. If he forced himself to use 120% of his strength, it would be as bad as not doing enough, and the conflict would intensify. As for how to strengthen himself, in short, the three worlds of politics, business, and academia had to occupy a position. Su Lixing's strength lay in the fact that he had spread his influence in the political world and dominated the academic world. Wu Xian's strength lay in the fact that he stood at a certain height in the political world at a young age. In the future he would continue to rise, and his potential was astonishing. As for Qin Guang himself, other than the 170 million cash in his bank account, he had nothing. Having money didn't mean you had real social status. If the money was left to rot in the bank account, it wouldn't help to raise your social status. If you stood there, no matter how much money you had in your account, in the eyes of others, you would still be how you should be. However, if this 200 million was placed outside or used as an investment or to start one's own business, it could support tens or hundreds of people, provide tax revenue for the economy, or influence the lives of some people, then this money would truly represent one's social status, and one would have a foothold in the business world. If the current him was sitting on a business worth hundreds of millions and he could talk to some of the higher-ups, he wouldn't need Wu Xian to step in. He could negotiate with Su Lixing himself. Even if he couldn't be on equal footing, he could at least make Su Lixing slightly apprehensive. This seemingly troublesome matter would become a problem that could be solved with a word or a meal. Deep in Qin Guang's heart, an emotion known as unwillingness gradually welled up. He had lived a muddle-headed life for 20 years and experienced many things. Ever since he obtained the heavenly Holy Grail, Qin Guang clearly didn't put much effort into it. He only did things that were within his power to do, and it seemed like everything had been smooth sailing for him until now. Until today, when he violently bumped into the huge mountain that was Su Lixing. Before they even met, he was already beaten up by Su Lixing's casual means. He finally vaguely understood the principle that he couldn't always be used to using other people's power and status as his backing. Wu Xian could scare off Wang Ren, and Duan Wen could intimidate Ma Xinlin. Although these things seemed so good, they were ultimately not his own strength. He needed to have his own strength. Chapter 381. I want to be the kind of person who can control the fate of others with a single word. I want to have the power to look up to heaven and earth and not have to bow down to anyone. But that was a matter for the future. This time, since Wu Xian's face was no longer useful and Qin Guang really did not want to bow down, he decided to simply smash his head against Su Lixing. Even if he had to bleed, he had to let Su Lixing know how powerful he was. When Qin Guang returned to the store, the three women were already drunk and Hua Ling was narrating many things with tears in her eyes. At this moment, Qin Guang finally understood why she lost control of her emotions. He never thought that Ding Lu and Hua Ling were roommates. There were 4 girls in a dorm, and Ding Lu ended her fragile life hastily. The other 3 girls in the same dorm, on the other hand, received the recommendation for postgraduate studies in their second year, and never missed out on scholarships during their undergraduate years. The school was trying to cover up something with benefits, it was self-evident. Hua Ling and the other 2 girls spent 4 whole years on the road paved by Ding Lu's blood and life. He did not know how the other 2 girls were doing, but Hua Ling's heart had been in pain for 4 whole years. It was self-evident how depressed she was. No wonder she always said she didn't want to do postgraduate studies. If it was Qin Guang, he probably wouldn't even be able to stay there for a day. There are a lot of rumors about Xiao Lu, but I can tell you that only half of them are true. I've been hiding this in my heart for 4 years. I can't hold it in anymore. Many people think that Xiao Lu voluntarily slept in Wang Ren's bed. But let me tell you, one day Xiao Lu told us that Wang Ren only asked her to go outside the school for a simple talk, but after she came back she cried non-stop. I asked for a long time before I found out that she wasn't willing at all. She was drugged by Wang Ren. The school didn't allow us to say it, so they kept coaxing us. Su Lixing also knows about this. He knows who I am. If I didn't meet Teacher Zhou, I wouldn't even want to do postgraduate studies. I'm living in pain every day. Now that 4 years have passed, Su Lixing also knows that it's useless for us to say anything. They can expel me if they want to, I don't really care. But I just hate people like Wang Ren. Why doesn't anyone give him the retribution he deserves? Hua Ling gulped down a big mouthful of white wine and almost coughed up blood. Before she collapsed, she slammed the table and said, "Zhong Yu also slammed the table. Thump, thump, bastard." Then Zhong Yu also collapsed. Zhou Jingxi drank a little less than the two girls, but she was also drunk. She first looked at Hua Ling and Zhong Yu and no one knew what she was thinking. Suddenly she turned to look at Qin Guang, who was sitting next to her, and hugged him fiercely. "Why is it so hard to be an innocent person?" Then she began to bawl. She did not know how many times she had cried today. Zhou Jingxi had never been such a weak woman, but this time she was truly hurt by the cruelty of reality. Qin Guang didn't avoid her at all. He turned around and hugged her. After a long time he whispered in her ear, "Teacher Zhou, don't worry. I will give all of you an explanation. You won't leave the lab and Hua Ling won't be fired. This is all I can do for now, but sooner or later I will give all of you an explanation. Good and evil will be repaid." Qin Guang never made promises easily. Even if Zhou Jingxi, who was already drunk, didn't remember what he said, he had to keep his promise since it came from his mouth. Stopping Zhou Jingxi, who still wanted to pour herself more wine, Qin Guang sullenly drank a mouthful of wine. It was exceptionally bitter. Of the 4 people, 2 were so drunk that they fell asleep. Zhou Jingxi was also so drunk that she couldn't walk properly, but at least she could still stand up straight. Qin Guang spent a lot of effort to hold Hua Ling and Zhong Yu in each of his arms. Then he let Zhou Jingxi walk unsteadily in front. Under the envious and jealous gazes of many people, he finally sent Hua Ling and Zhong Yu back to their dormitory. Seeing Zhong Yu and Zhou Jingxi go upstairs with the help of their roommates, Qin Guang let out a sigh of relief. The strange looks he received on the way back were really quite uncomfortable. Qin Guang's hard work for the day wasn't over yet. He still had to send Zhou Jingxi home. Perhaps it was because of the cold wind blowing on her head on the way back, but Zhou Jingxi was getting more and more drunk. She just waved her hand. I can't walk anymore. Alright, let's carry her back. It's much easier to carry one person. Qin Guang, do you think people like Wang Ren should go to hell? Zhou Jingxi mumbled as she lay on his back. Qin Guang nodded. Yes, they should go to hell. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard snoring behind him. Zhou Jingxi had already fallen asleep. After arriving at her house, Qin Guang spent a lot of time to settle her down. She was so drunk and he didn't dare to leave her alone at home. He went to the living room, turned on her computer and started to work on his own matters. Qin Guang had a rough plan in his mind. If it worked, he really didn't need Wuxian's help to tire Su Lijing out. Logging into Weibo, it had been a few days since he posted the Dota video of Windrunner. However, this time he didn't let Jin Jiang and Zhong Yu repost it. Although the 2 girls had the urge to do so, they held it in. With the same ID, the 2 girls reposted it once in a while. It could be explained that they were attracted by his video, but if this person reposted every single one of his posts, who knew how much gossip would come out of it? Qin Guang also told the 2 girls that with their help, he had already taken the first step on his road to being an internet celebrity, and that was enough. In the future, this ID might become more and more conspicuous, and there might even be more and more people trying to dig out the true identity of the almighty Superman. Therefore, it was best for the 2 of them to distance themselves from their relationship on Weibo and not get involved again. If they were asked in the future, they could at least lie to the media. The 2 girls faintly felt that it was a little funny. Only 1 million fans, far from being a real internet celebrity. However, the 2 of them didn't point out Qin Guang's arrogance and only said, "As long as you're happy." In the end, the game was still limited by the rules of the game itself. No matter how eye-catching the maneuvers were, it was difficult for people to see how much was beyond the limits of human beings. Moreover, the audience of the Dota video wasn't wide, so this video didn't cause much of a stir on the internet. It only circulated among the Dota players for a while. After all, this was the first person's view of the only godly player in the national server so far. In half a month, the Weibo fans of this almighty Superman increased from nearly 1 million to 1.2 million, an increase of 200,000. Compared to other internet celebrities, it was a drop in the bucket, but this increase was already higher than the total number of fans of most game streamers. Even in his private messages, live streaming websites began to invite him to be a streamer. Considering that he had to register with his real name to be a streamer, and the income wasn't so high that he couldn't refuse. Qin Guang wasn't tempted at all. After thinking about it, he called Wang Qing and asked him to send the Xianxia car racing documentary that he had secretly produced to his email. He wanted to delete the front and back parts and only keep the scene of him wearing a mask and sitting in the car. At the same time, he wanted to cut off the part about selling the car and only keep the most important part about racing. He wanted to increase the influence of his Weibo account as fast as possible. Water could carry a boat, but it could also capsize it. Using the power of public opinion to make Su Lijing feel afraid was his first step. About half an hour later, Wang Qing sent the video over. After seeing that there were no problems, Qin Guang directly posted it. The title of the video was, "I sharpened the pencil, I drove the car, I'm the almighty Superman, I'm the almighty Superman." Below was the caption, "I guarantee with my integrity that this is indeed me." If you like this video, please forward it, spread it and follow it. Chapter 382. After posting the video, Qin Guang constantly refreshed his Weibo. As he looked at the reposts, the number of comments gradually increased. Usually he was a rather casual person and rarely did anything with a strong sense of purpose. But tonight he was different. 5 minutes later, there were 3,000 replies and 8,000 reposts. 20 minutes later, there were 8,000 replies and 20,000 reposts. An hour later, there were 16,000 replies and 40,000 reposts. Similar to the last time, the driving skills he showed in Hong Kong were also incredible, beyond human understanding and more down-to-earth than sharpening a pencil. There were not many people who deliberately practiced sharpening pencils. But when it came to driving, although not everyone could drive, everyone had sat in a car before. In addition, there was one more topic of debate among the netizens below. According to usual practice, some people first questioned the authenticity of the video. After all, these scenes could hardly be seen even in a movie like The Fast and the Furious. Then, when the authenticity of the video was verified by the technical geeks and the fans who witnessed the miracle that day, and gradually confirmed that it was completely true, a new theory arose. Was this Weibo user called Almighty Superman the same person in the car? This also caused widespread controversy. But the appearance of the V Special Agent Team mask showed that the credibility of his statement was still very high. An hour and a half later, after the initial promotion by fans, this Weibo ushered in the second wave of explosion after a slow brewing. More and more Weibo users who had almost forgotten about Almighty Superman suddenly remembered this person. After watching this video, more and more internet celebrities used their own channels to inquire about the authenticity of the news. They knew that this was indeed the racing god of this generation who had been crowned a god in the circle some time ago, so they took the initiative to repost it. In fact, it was the first time that many internet celebrities saw this video. Perhaps some people had heard of the story of the Xianxia car gambling race, but the race organizers did not release the live video of that day to the public. Without some special channels and connections, it was impossible to get the video. After all, the car gambling race was an underground race that did not see the light of day. According to the usual style of the organizers, once this kind of video appeared on the internet, they would take the initiative to block it. But this time they did not do so and acquiesced. At this time, the number of comments on this Weibo post had skyrocketed to 30,000, and the number of reposts had reached 100,000. Uncle Cheng, who was far away in Hong Kong, even called to inquire about the situation. He was worried that Qin Guang's video had been stolen. After confirming that it was Qin Guang who did it, Uncle Cheng stopped asking about it. He just found it funny that Qin Guang had great power, but he did such a trivial thing. Then he told Qin Guang that the organizer of the car race had just called to inquire about the situation. Uncle Cheng regarded this matter as child's play, but Qin Guang didn't think so. He just smiled as he looked at the influence of his Weibo account. The light in his eyes became more and more scorching. Even Jiang Yage and Jin Shuiwei might not be able to achieve such a skyrocketing number of comments and reposts. Let alone Qin Guang's number of followers was only a few tenths of those two. However, Qin Guang managed to do it. His videos weren't like Jiang Yage's, which didn't have any substance. Instead, they contained genuine high-quality content that could make the blood of others boil and make them worship him. Before lying on the sofa to sleep, Qin Guang looked at the number of his fans. In 3 hours it had skyrocketed from 1.2 million to 1.5 million. There would be some follow-up effects tomorrow and the day after. Before the next video was uploaded, it might increase to nearly 3 million fans, which was enough. As a new internet celebrity, the number of this living person's fans was enough to crush most of his peers on Weibo. The next morning, Zhou Xian, who had a hangover, woke up faintly. She looked up at her watch and found that it was already past 9 o'clock. Subconsciously, she jumped up from the bed and planned to rush to the bathroom to wash up. As a result, as soon as she walked out of the bedroom door, she remembered that she no longer had to go to the laboratory. Suddenly, her heart became empty. She turned her head again and saw that Qin Guang, who had stayed up until midnight, was still sleeping on the sofa. The empty feeling in her heart inexplicably disappeared. She didn't wake him up. Zhou Xian gently washed her face, then closed the kitchen door, fried 3 eggs, cooked a pot of porridge and made some shredded potatoes. Only then did she bring everything out to wake Qin Guang up to eat. I have some things to do later. Teacher Zhou, what are your plans for today? Qin Guang, who was used to eating buns and soy milk, was happy to suddenly have 2 fried eggs to eat early in the morning. Zhou Xian held her chin and thought for a while. I'll catch up on my English. After I go abroad, if I can't make ends meet for the first few months, I'll really need you to support me. Once she accepted this setting and was stripped of her identity as Qin Guang's tutor, the grudge in her heart towards the teacher-student relationship unknowingly disappeared. Although she was a little shy when she said this, she didn't try to avoid it. Qin Guang thought for a while. What if I have the opportunity to not leave the laboratory? Zhou Xian heard this and was happy at first, but then she shook her head. You don't believe me? Zhou Xian continued to shake her head. It's not that I don't believe it. It's just that I'm a little disappointed with the current situation of domestic scientific research. Even if the school changes its decision, I still want to go out and explore. In layman's terms, the world is so big and I want to see it. I'll just take it as a way to relax and also as a way to study. In the past, I couldn't let go of the laboratory and I didn't have money. Isn't this just right? It's a rare opportunity. As she said this, she looked at Qin Guang a little embarrassedly. When she realized that she was really prepared to accept his sponsorship, without any psychological barriers, even she felt that it was unbelievable. That's the case. Good. Qin Guang didn't comment. If it wasn't for the fact that he had so many things on his mind, he might have noticed the obvious change in Zhou Xian's attitude and took the opportunity to tease her. Oh right, don't stir up any more trouble. Go back to school and comfort Hualing. Although she's a carefree person, I'm sure she's not satisfied. Qin Guang nodded. Don't worry, I'll go find her. After leaving Zhou Xian's house, Qin Guang didn't go back to school immediately. Instead, he went straight to the water bar opposite Wenqing branch and asked for a private room. He then called Wu Tong and told her to find him at the water bar after work at noon. At noon, Wu Tong, who had changed into casual clothes, sat down with a stack of documents in her hands. Qin Guang took a look and couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Although Wang Ren's table manners were ugly in school, when he was in the Jianhuan school most of the time he would take meat from the students' mouths. He said that it was corruption, but this kind of thing usually didn't leave any substantial evidence. It wasn't until after he went to the School of Chemical Engineering that the equipment purchase orders for the School of Chemical Engineering showed a relatively high price in the past few months. It could vaguely be considered corruption, but there was no substantial evidence. Chapter 383. Wu Tong and Wang Long only did this in private. As the main executor of the investigation, Wang Long couldn't directly go to the school as a police officer to avoid alerting the enemy. Instead, he found another reliable person and had this person contact a few well-informed students to indirectly inquire about Wang Ren's past. For example, which student was caught cheating in an exam and fell into Wang Ren's hands. But there was no record of any disciplinary action after the investigation. Then there was a high chance that there was something fishy going on. This was how the police handled cases. This was called preliminary investigation. If the person they were investigating was an ordinary person, they might be able to directly talk to other teachers and leaders of the school to dig out more information. But this time the person they were dealing with was Wang Ren, Su Lijing's nephew. He was especially sensitive, so the current operation could only stop at the level of a student. However, Qin Guang was a well-informed fellow. In the past he had never sorted out Wang Ren's matters in his heart. But when he came here today he started to recall as he looked. At the same time he took a piece of paper and added to it. Unknowingly, the pile of evidence that Wu Tong had painstakingly organized was more like gossip than evidence, completely destroyed by the stuff that Qin Guang had dug out of his head. Looking at the 2 pages of paper that he had written densely, Lord Guang looked at Wu Tong with a meaningful gaze. Believe me, I'm really a cute little boy. I'm definitely not a gossipy person. Do you think I'll believe you? Isn't your university a little too much? Are you there to study or to be a gossip collector? Wang Long indirectly asked at least 8 people for information and everything he collected is here. But you know everything and even added 2 more pages for me. Just how much gossip is in your head? Wu Tong was almost defeated by him. Poor comrade Wang Long did all his work for nothing. If you're so capable you should have said so earlier. Qin Guang scratched his head. No, brother Wang's work isn't for nothing. Can help me inspire ideas. That's right. Wu Tong poked his head. Save it. You're still trying to inspire me? Besides, the quantity of these things is far from enough. The lab equipment suppliers who had bribed him with money were the real deal, but they weren't easy to deal with. Look, these purchase prices look a little suspicious. If you think about it carefully, there is indeed something behind it. But isn't this the unspoken rule of the industry? These suppliers were also very cunning. They were all experts and they would not easily leave behind any evidence that could be used against them. My head hurts. Unless we can sow discord between us and let one or a few suppliers take the initiative to jump out as witnesses. Wu Tong rolled her eyes at him. Have you watched too many movies? What stain witnesses? How can other people still do business? Qin Guang smiled confidently. Why would I still want to do business? I'll buy him. You can do that? Wu Tong's eyes widened. Qin Guang nodded. Why not? The people who sold the equipment were just distributors, not the manufacturers. Some of them had the label of a general agent, but to put it bluntly, it was just an empty shell. I bought it in one bite and then found the salesperson who was in contact with Wang Ren at that time. Isn't this irrefutable evidence? Where did you get the money? Even if it was an empty shell, other people wouldn't just sell it, right? It should be at least a few million, right? Also, even if you really bought someone else's company, you wouldn't have any evidence against them. Who would want to find trouble with Su Lijing? That's right. I'll think of another way later. Qin Guang looked at the entire list of lab equipment distributors in Wu Tong's file and pondered. He did not comment on Wu Tong's opinion. Using normal methods he might not be able to pry open the mouths of those suppliers. But since Qin Guang wanted to do it this time he had to see it through to the end. He suddenly remembered something and said, there is another person. Let's go to his house tonight to meet him. Maybe he can provide us with something useful. Who? Our school's deputy dean. Mr. Han. After all, Wu Tong was now the deputy bureau chief. She still had a meeting in the police station in the afternoon. Investigating Wang Ren was her private action. At the same time she had to avoid other people in the police station. She could not rule out the possibility that someone in the Wenqing branch guessed some inside information and went to inform Su Lijing. After dinner Wu Tong went back to the police station. Qin Guang went back to the school and walked in the direction of the graduate student dormitory. When he arrived he happened to see Hua Ling bitterly moving things down from the dormitory building. Zhongyu was next to her, helping her carry another box. Why are you in such a hurry to move out of the school? Tell me if you want to move things. Is there no student who is willing to help? Qin Guang walked up quickly and snatched the box from Hua Ling's hands. He carried it on his back. Zhongyu spat. Stop talking. When we were eating in the cafeteria, the deputy dean of the graduate student faculty ran to our table and pointed at Hua Ling's nose. He told her that she must move out today. If she delayed any longer the school security would come and kick her out. Others? The school has already posted the punishment notice under the dormitory building. Who would dare to get into trouble? Aren't you afraid? Hua Ling asked Zhongyu with a smile. She didn't seem to care at all. Zhongyu shrugged. What am I afraid of? Anyway, I've already been detained. They can't just give me a punishment for helping you carry a box, right? That's hard to say. Hua Ling laughed. I'll be waiting for you. Zhongyu pouted. Actually, my family always said that it's useless for me to study. After I graduate I should go to work. If I work, I can get married and make do with my life. Fortunately, I wasn't expelled. Otherwise, believe it or not, I would immediately find a job for you guys to see. Qin Guang, who was walking in front, laughed. Follow me to the parking lot. My car is over there. You don't be anxious. The good show has to wait. Senior Hualing, don't be anxious either. After we get out, let's rent a house in the neighborhood over there. Maybe you'll have to move back in a few days. Don't say that you don't want to study anymore. Both of you say that you don't care, but in fact you really want to do something with Teacher Zhou, right? This photocatalyst thing is really magical. I've only been in contact with it for a few days and I feel like my whole body is about to sink into it. Even in my dreams, I want to see something that can be made into something real to benefit the future generations. Yo, I still don't know that you have a car. Zhong Yu teased. Qin Guang was proud, of course. There are some things I don't want to say in front of Luo Jin. Now that we're on the same side, I'll say it here. If I don't do my job well and Senior Hualing can't go back to school, I'll open a company and you can come to work here. The two girls covered their mouths and laughed. They thought that he was really funny. Seeing that the two of them didn't believe him, Qin Guang hid his words in his heart. He was waiting for the two of them to see his phaeton and worship him with sparkling eyes. You're not bad, young man. A Passat. Looks quite impressive. When they arrived at the parking lot, Zhong Yu said happily, young man, you're quite rich. Looking at the Passat logo that he had deliberately asked the 4S shop to make, Qin Guang felt a faint pain in his balls. He said, this is a phaeton. You're so funny. Hua Ling and Zhong Yu said in unison. Really is a phaeton. Okay, it's a phaeton. I'm really scared of you. Zhong Yu said. Chapter 384. According to Hua Ling's original plan, she wanted to take the things to the train station and ship them back to the northeast. She had already told her family about it and they were very open-minded about it. Even her father almost wanted to argue with Su Lijing. Hua Ling spent a lot of effort to suppress her father's anger. Anyway, if the east was dark, the west was bright. She would still be able to survive if she did not go to graduate school. However, under Qin Guang's insistence, Hua Ling changed her mind. She did not want to leave Wujing for the time being. She originally wanted to rent a house, but Zhou Jingxi called and scolded Qin Guang before taking him to her house. Actually, it was not that Qin Guang did not think of this idea. It was just that he did not want to have another person in Zhou Jingxi's house. As for why, he could not say. Hua Ling's little plan did not work out and she had to help move 3 times. She was exhausted, so she stayed at Zhou Jingxi's house for the time being. Before she left, Hua Ling quietly pulled Qin Guang to a corner. She hesitated for a moment and said softly, before Xiao Lu committed suicide, she sent me a text saying that she buried a metal box under a cherry tree behind her house. I asked her what was inside, but she did not tell me. She only told me to dig it up after I graduate if I still remember it. Qin Guang raised his eyebrows. Really? Yes, only I know about it. I plan to dig it up in a few days. She would not do something so meaningless. Hua Ling's eyes were filled with determination. Qin Guang frowned slightly, trying to guess what the girl named Ding Lu was feeling at that time. If what Hua Ling said was true, that she was drugged, she would definitely hate Wang Run to the core. Then her boyfriend made a big deal out of the matter and she was too embarrassed to face anyone in school. So she chose to leave school. However, she could not tell her family about this. Her family would definitely feel that she had gone to great lengths to provide for a university student, but she chose to quit school without saying a word. So when she returned home, she would be looked down upon. Later on, the news of what happened at school spread to her family. Perhaps it was a false rumor, but it turned out that she had behaved inappropriately at school and ended up being expelled. It was as if she had been abandoned by the entire world, so she chose to commit suicide. Before she died, who was the person she hated the most? Who did he want to take revenge on the most? Her boyfriend, who didn't understand her and took the matter to the school forum? A family that placed all their hopes on a university student like her, only to end up with nothing? Of course not, it must be Wang Ren who pulled her into the abyss. However, she knew that there might not be many people in this world who could help her. She was a student, and Wang Ren was the dean of the discipline department of the academy. He was famous in the academy for being able to cover the sky with one hand and committing all sorts of evil deeds. Moreover, Su Lijing was there to protect him. Who could deal with him? Therefore she locked her last hope of revenge in a box, buried it in the soil and told her best friend Hua Ling. However, she also understood Hua Ling's helplessness, so she only asked Hua Ling to dig it up after graduation if she still remembered it. Otherwise she wouldn't have gone through so much trouble. The thing in the box would definitely drag Wang Ren to hell. Perhaps, Ding Lu only hoped that the net of heaven had long arms, and that she had planted a seed of hatred. In the future, there would always be someone with enough power to water this seed, make it sprout and grow into a vengeful tree that would hang Wang Ren to death. Of course, even if there was irrefutable evidence with Wang Ren's background, it might not be able to bring him down. There were too many similar cases in the world. Truth often lost to power. However, it was different this time because there was Qin Guang. After understanding the reason, Qin Guang's eyes lit up. He had been worried that he couldn't find the conclusive evidence, but he didn't expect it to be in Hua Ling's hands. Don't worry, wait for a few days. I'll go with you to Ding Lu's house and I'll try to keep your status as a student, Qin Guang said. Hua Ling waved her hand. I know you're considerate, but forget it. That's Su Lijing we're talking about. In fact, if it weren't for this incident, I would have kept Xiao Lu's secret in my heart for the rest of my life, and never cared about that iron box. I'm not that noble of a person. Don't say that, you're already very brave, Qin Guang laughed. What are you two whispering about? Are you going to have dinner together again? At this time Zhongyu came over. Qin Guang shook his head. No, I have something to do and have to go back to school. By the way, is there a piano in school? Piano? Why are you asking? There's one in the performance hall of the Institute of Arts. If it was during school hours I could contact the students in the Institute of Arts, but it's summer break and the door is locked, Zhongyu said, puzzled. Qin Guang was happy. It would be even better if the door was locked. Let's go there tonight. Thinking about it carefully, he was really busy. He had to hurry up and record a video and prepare to go back and write the evidence he had so far into a story. He also had to be busy collecting further evidence. In the past he had never done anything with such a clear purpose. Now that he had found a direction, Qin Guang felt that he was unbelievably fulfilled. It was as if he had become Don Quixote, riding a skinny donkey, waving the lance in his hand, ready to crash into the mountain that was Su Lijing. Hua Ling and Zhongyu stayed at Zhou Jingxi's house for dinner. The three girls looked like they had a lot to talk about, so Qin Guang did not interfere. When he returned to the dormitory he first opened Weibo. Half a day had passed, and the number of comments on the racing video had exceeded 150,000. The number of shares had reached 300,000, and the number of fans was close to 2 million. Qin Guang looked at the screen and laughed. He thought to himself, with how popular my Weibo is now, if I want to criticize someone I'm afraid anyone would have a hard time, right? Then he searched for Su Lijing's life on the search engine. After reading it he could not help but feel a little depressed. The information that could be found on the internet was, of course, all praises. Back then Su Lijing had returned to the country with an extremely dazzling halo. From the 1980s until now he had been active in the country's economic field. Not only did he have a lot of works, but he had also spoken at many important meetings at many critical moments. He had indeed done some practical things for the country and the people. Even during several financial crises, Su Lijing also participated in the expert group, racking his brains to come up with strategies for the leaders at that time. The policies that were introduced one after another helped the country to remain independent in the turbulent international economic environment at that time and maintain rapid economic growth for many years. Their expert group was the predecessor of the central think tank. Until now, Su Lijing was still a core member of it. This was information that Qin Guang dug out from Wu Tong. From this perspective, Su Lijing, who had given up the generous treatment abroad and devoted himself to the construction of the country, was simply a perfect scholar. Not to say that he was comparable to the 2 bombs and 1 star, but from an economic point of view, his wisdom alone was enough to rival hundreds of billions of companies. But no one is perfect. Qin Guang's face was gloomy. He felt vaguely sad to be enemies with such a person. It was not because he was afraid but because he felt sorry for Su Lijing from the bottom of his heart. Perhaps Su Lijing felt that he was a person who had contributed to the country. Allowing a small figure to act like a tyrant in a small area of the school was far less damage to the country than his own contributions, so it was not a big deal. From a big point of view that was indeed the case. But when the matter was narrowed down to Ding Lu alone, Zhou Xian became Satan standing behind the devil. Everyone had their own definition of justice in their heart. Their starting point and foothold might be different. But this time, Qin Guang decided to stick to his justice. You may hate me, but someone has to remove the thorn that is Wang Ren from your body. I'll do it. Chapter 385. Just as he was about to go out and meet Wu Tong, Qin Guang unexpectedly received a call from the form teacher. In Gokyo University, the form teacher and the counselor were two different systems. The form teacher was usually in charge of a class, mainly in charge of learning, but there was nothing much to manage. The number of times Qin Guang had seen the form teacher during his 3 years in university could be counted on one hand. The counselor was in charge of several classes at the same time, mainly in charge of the daily life and discipline of each class, as well as the distribution of scholarships. At the same time, the school policies were conveyed to each class. The teachers and students often interacted with each other. Now that Zhou Xian had been removed as a counselor, the form teacher that he had not seen for a long time finally appeared. The form teacher first asked where Qin Guang was, and when he heard that he was still in school, he said that he would come to find him immediately. After hanging up, Qin Guang did not need to think to know the purpose of his visit. Not long after, the mysterious form teacher, Teacher Zhou, ran over with a head full of sweat. When she saw Qin Guang, she said to his face, "What's wrong with you? You beat Director Wang up like that." Qin Guang did not get up from his chair. He took a sip of tea and said, "Teacher Zhou, did you come here just to scold me?" "Why no. I've been scolded by you. That's enough." Teacher Zhou did not expect this kind of attitude from him. She was stunned at first, then said angrily, "How can you still act like nothing happened? What else can I do? So scared that I can't eat or sleep. How can you not know what kind of person Wang Ren is? So what if I beat him up?" Qin Guang looked at this person calmly, thinking that he was particularly funny. Teacher Zhou slammed the table. "You really have no remorse at all? Why should I have remorse? You shouldn't have hit me. I don't want to repeat the cause and effect of the matter with you because it's meaningless. All right, Teacher Zhou, you've already been here and I've received your intention. You can leave. This is your job and I understand. But I don't want to waste my saliva on you. I'm very busy." Qin Guang asked him to leave. "You're chasing me away?" Miss Zhou had heard of a rather arrogant boy in her class before. She also knew that he was the one who forced Wang Ren to leave the Jianhuan Academy, but she did not expect him to be so difficult to deal with. "I'm not chasing you away. It's just that even if you keep talking to me for 7 to 8 hours, it'll be useless." Teacher Zhou choked on his breath. Instead, she was shocked by his stubbornness. Her tone softened again. "Qin Guang, listen to me. Don't think that I was ordered by someone to scold you. I'm doing this for your own good. Now that things have already happened and Director Wang is magnanimous enough to not pursue the matter further, the Academy's leaders hope that you can at least go and apologize. This can be considered as making peace. Do you think that's okay?" So that was how it was. Presumably, the matter had already been spread to the ears of Principal Tong and the others. Although Zhou Xian didn't say anything, it was impossible for him to have no grudges in his heart. The leaders of the Jianhuan Academy had no way of knowing what was on a higher level. They could only speculate about Zhou Xian's thoughts from their own point of view. Hence Dean Tong had a huge headache. Vice Dean Deng, who was originally on the same side as Wang Ren, had no way of not doing something. Principal Tong was extremely distressed. He vaguely guessed that perhaps Wu Shan and the vice principal had reached a compromise. In his own opinion, he didn't want to get involved in this matter. However, if he didn't do anything, Zhou Xian might think that he was deliberately being perfunctory. After all, last time when Wang Ren left the Jianhuan Academy, Zhou Xian gave him enough face and approved of his decision. However, at that time Wang Ren only moved to another place. It wasn't like this time where he was sent to the hospital. This time he had to do something. He couldn't do nothing, but he also couldn't be biased towards either side. Otherwise he would get himself into trouble. Principal Tong thought hard for a long time and came up with a good plan. He might as well be the peacemaker and persuade Qin Guang to apologize to Wang Ren. Then this matter would be completely suppressed. As for the other people who were implicated because of this matter, he couldn't protect them even if he wanted to. Even old lady Shu couldn't protect them, so he was also powerless. As the principal, there were some things that he couldn't say clearly. He let Teacher Zhou, the teacher in charge of Qin Guang's class, do it for him. Unfortunately, he couldn't tell Teacher Zhou that Qin Guang had Wu Xian as his backing. Teacher Zhou had to be more careful when talking to him. Wasn't that a little too much? Therefore, Teacher Zhou couldn't completely understand Principal Tong's meaning. She still used that condescending tone to talk to Qin Guang. The conversation broke down the moment they met. Regarding Teacher Zhou's suggestion, Qin Guang said straightforwardly, "Apologize? Save it. I think he deserved to be beaten. Even if he beat me, I'm not interested in apologizing." "How can you be like this? We are doing this for your own good. There are some things that I shouldn't say. But as for Vice Principal Su, in short, if you can go and apologize, it will be a good thing for you and the academy. Why don't you listen to my advice? Isn't it just an apology? It's just saying a few words. Is it that hard? If others don't pursue this matter, can't you give them a way out?" Glancing at Mr. Zhou, Qin Guang instantly understood what was going on. Yes, they didn't pursue this matter. Teacher Zhui, Senior Zhong Yu and Senior Hua Ling, you know about it, right? Then tell me I was the one who beat him up. They didn't pursue this matter, but they punished other unrelated people. What's the meaning of this? Why? Qin Guang asked. Teacher Zhou was stumped by his question. Why? Yes, why? Qin Guang looked at Teacher Zhou with a smile. Forget it, let me remind you. Wang Ren has Su Lijing to back him up. I also have someone to back me up, so they didn't do anything to me. Teacher Zhou, you have to be more respectful when you speak to me. Qin Guang had pointed it out himself. Teacher Zhou was embarrassed. He couldn't continue with the harsh words and neither could the soft ones. Seeing his awkward expression, Qin Guang was not in the mood to waste time with him. He rolled his eyes and said, "Okay, I'll apologize to Director Wang tomorrow or the day after." Teacher Zhou was overjoyed. She did not expect that there would be a glimmer of hope. Really? Qin Guang nodded. Really? But I don't know where Director Wang's ward is. I'll have to trouble Teacher Zhou to tell me. Teacher Zhou happily wrote a note to Qin Guang. She thought for a moment and said, "I'll go with you. It'll be more sincere." Qin Guang took the note and looked at Teacher Zhou meaningfully. "Forget it. I'll go by myself." "You, what are you going to do?" Teacher Zhou vaguely felt that something was wrong. Qin Guang grinned. "Apologize." His smile was exceptionally bright and full of sincerity. Teacher Zhou's mind was in a mess when he left. He always felt that he might have caused trouble. However, Qin Guang insisted that he was going to apologize, leaving him speechless. Poor comrade little Zhou. He even began to hesitate whether he should quickly inform Director Tong and let the hospital arrange for Wang Ren to hide in another ward. What kind of mess was this? On the other side, Qin Guang and Wu Tong, who had just gotten off work, went to Deputy Director Han's neighborhood. Old Lady Shu asked Qin Guang to look for Deputy Director Han, but she did not want little Han, who had no real power, to be dragged into this mess. Therefore it was better to go directly to his house to talk face to face. Qin Guang was also a repeat customer of this neighborhood. Wu Tong's memory was also good. When she stopped the car, she clapped her hands. "It seems that when we met by this river you helped me catch a thief? Why did you come here that day?" Qin Guang's mouth twitched. He recalled the youth under the sunset, the medieval knight armor that he almost suffocated to death, and Comrade Old Han's broken gong-like voice. The memory was full of bitterness. It's a long story. But you're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.